Going live. We have just gone live. There we go.
Now recording.
Welcome to the Yang Gang Roundtable. It is 2:24 p.m. Friday, February 26, 2021. It feels like it's been a little while. I've got Yenni Desroches here. I pronounced that right? Okay, good. I just got confirmation. So welcome to the show. We had a little bit of a scheduling snafu last week, but we managed to get you here this week. So it's very good to see you. We have Ariel Moto and myself here for a very intimate conversation. Usually I have Feiku Feidoni here to modulate me and to keep the show going and to keep me on task with some of the things that slip my mind as the technical producer a lot of the time. But we'll try to do our best. So, all right, Ariel, you go ahead. So, but why don't we let Yenni introduce herself, and then you can begin the conversation after that, Ariel.
All right.
So I'm Yenni Desroches. I'm running for Worcester City Council in District 5, which is the west side of our city. And I've been here for about since 2013. We are owner-occupied landlords. It's my husband's hometown, so we've got family really close. His mother grew up in the house that they're living in now, so been around a while. And my background, I went to school for video game development. I went into and owned a pet care business that unfortunately I had to permanently close in March. Pet care during a pandemic where people stay home doesn't really exist. So
no, wow. But video game design,
and I was a regional organizer for the Yang campaign. And y'all had me on in, I think it was June or July, as one of the board members for Humanity First Movement.
So, I'm sorry. Did you say the position you're running for?
Worcester City Council, District 5.
That's Worcester City Council, District 5. I thought, right. So it's a municipal office. Okay, cool.
Yep.
We have not had too many people running at the municipal level on here, and that's what Yang is doing himself now. So that's I think looking at the ground level, maybe the big mistake we've been making is jumping
mayor
to
of New York really counts as municipal.
You can make a case.
If it was compared to the states, it'd be our 38th largest state.
Yeah, it depends on your metric. If you're going by size, no. Yeah. But if you're going by just technicality, yes. And in practice, a municipal leader makes different kinds of decisions than a state or local leader. And I think despite the scale, there is still a lot of parallelism between like a medium-sized city mayor and a large, I don't know. But certainly it's just as valid to conceptualize it by size. You're dealing with millions and millions of people. And in many ways, it's fundamentally different than being a small town mayor. Anyway, that's not really what we're here to talk about. We're basic income advocates.
Worcester has a strong city manager system, weak mayor. So the city manager is the one who actually runs the city, and then the mayor is kind of more of a figurehead chairperson of the city council and school committee. So it's not as the mayor kind of role here in Worcester is very different from what you would see in, say, Boston or New York.
So you're more of an executive and less of a figurehead. Okay, it's interesting. It's interesting how you even have how you have a sense of that, because I don't feel privileged to that information about even the places I've lived. I'm not connected to local leadership, so that's pretty neat.
It's sometimes difficult to get involved.
Yeah,
it's
hard. What are the avenues through which you're supposed to get involved?
Right.
I mean, if you don't have the traditional kind of stake in the community where you are providing, you're connected to a good livelihood, perhaps providing others livelihoods, either, if you really have the traditional view of community oriented and local businesses, everyone is helping each other. But, and that's how you get, bases of power by which communities can self-govern. And when that doesn't happen, there are no bases of power by which communities can self-govern, and you just have this old, ossified, gentrified, ancient class of leadership. Anyway, go on, Ariel.
The thing is that in a lot of the places here in the United States, everything is just about commerce. We're just surrounded by a bunch of big box stores, and we buy stuff but nobody ever like what's the sense of community other than buying things?
I think Worcester might be a interesting case study on that, because it's a former like industrial town. I think that kind of got hit pretty hard by
Yeah, it got hit
deindustrialization.
by the like manufacturing going out of the area, and then we had a really bad period, obviously, like most mill towns did. Then we started up with we got David Clark, who created the first spacesuits. We're the home of Robert Goddard, who was the first person to do rocketry. And then we kind of added biomed, and then the crash of '08 kind of like knocked us down again, like it did most places, and we're only just starting to really pick back up from that, and COVID hits.
What would you say Worcester's like main sort of industries are nowadays?
So we have a lot of restaurants. We are definitely a foodie town. Unfortunately, COVID's taking away a lot of them. One of my favorites, which was an Afghani place, closed. I am sorely, sorely going to miss them. But we've got a couple of other things that are kind of coming up. We've got a lot of breweries, a lot of local breweries that have their own kind of tasting house restaurants. And then we've got the Woo Sox, which are moving here from Pawtucket. They are going from the Paw Sox to the Woo Sox. They're the AAA team for the Red Sox. And they built a stadium here in Worcester. That's actually, it's the city built, but they built. There's a weird like leasing of it. But they're going to be bringing in a lot of different business as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how things shift.
As a kind of a secondary city, has Worcester been absorbing people fleeing from Boston in COVID, or because that's sort of what we're seeing in our area?
Even before. We just had a redo to our bus depot not too long ago, and our train station started getting a little bit more in terms of commuter rail. Thanks, MBTA, for pulling back on that. We need to fix that post-COVID when funding goes back up again, hopefully. But the property that's around downtown started getting massively redone. So there was a old mall that had been left and then demolished, and nothing was going there. We've got a new apartment complex that's there. They're charging $1,850 for a studio apartment, which is ridiculously high for Worcester, because my 3-bedroom is $1,450 that I rent out to people, and then I've got a 2-bed that's $13. Wow. So it's like, it's difficult for me to see those prices, but at the same time, I recognize that the people coming from Boston, that's a steal. For like a 2-bed under $2,500. That's unheard of in the Boston area sometimes, depending on what part of the city you're in. So it is we've got a lot of like people that are coming here to commute from here, and we need to kind of adapt that a little bit so it's less of a commuter culture. We need people to actually like play here, not just live. We need them to work and play here, and to do that we need the jobs. But
about how long a commute is it from Worcester to Boston?
If you're doing it on the train, it's about an hour to South Station, and then you've got to go from there to wherever your job is.
Okay, so you're like kind of peak commuter range then for people doing bedroom stuff. Yeah,
and then the driving in can take 2 or more hours depending on traffic that day.
That's such a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I commuted to Boston for a month.
Wow.
For a contract job, and that was rough. Wow. I was having to get up at 7 to be sure that I'd be there at 9.
Yeah, I did essentially that same kind of commute to New York City for a while, and it definitely feels like it's stealing your life if you're not careful.
I went to like the commuter school in the Valley here in Los Angeles, but the good news is I was going against the traffic from like West LA to the Valley. So if it was the other way around, I'd have to wake up like 2 hours earlier because the 405 has the worst traffic in history.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever. Oh, but you've
I've
never
driven on there
been.
once.
Oh, you've been. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Once. That
The only
was
thing.
enough.
Yeah. So you how long were you in LA?
I was just there for visiting
Like a.
someone.
Oh,
Literally
okay.
came in and went out again.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I was only in like Boston, but I went to this place called Norwood to do this like
Hmm.
fun little helicopter ride there. It was kind of cool.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was interesting to see a city that doesn't that you could like actually get on trains and stuff.
Hmm.
Ours is not so much built here, and that's like kind of annoying because the only way to get into the valley and out of the valley is mostly by car. It's yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of a different
Yeah.
game on the West Coast.
In
yeah.
in Worcester, we've got a bus system. We have the commuter rail to Boston. But our bus system, they're currently in talks to go fare free permanently, but right now it's fare free for COVID till June. Uh, and then I want to make sure that the fare free continues. That's an important change that our infrastructure needs to make because people being able to get places so that they can work is
Well,
important.
here's the thing. Like for you as like a landlord, if
Hmm.
there's the is there still the eviction moratorium? So it's like
Yeah.
the tenants aren't paying, or if they're willing, or like how's that work
So
now?
I have the good fortune of having tenants that are still working. So we did give them a discount a couple of months. They were one of the apartments had some people that were laid off temporarily. We also are doing a major buttload of construction in our apartments right now because we're changing over the electric from knob and tube to modern wiring that's not going to potentially set fire to our house. And in the process, we found that the random occasional leak we were having was actually a roof problem. And then when we went in to fix the leak area that was damaged, we had mold, so we had to clean the mold. So it's been like a year-long process that we've probably put about half the
Like
value of the house back into it.
like do you guys like do an HOA or like that doesn't exist
Mm-mm.
with like a land? Oh, okay. Well, HOAs are still like nosy and useless anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually in like complexes where there's a lot of buildings. We've only got a
Right.
3-family, so
Yeah, yeah. It's like between you guys about people who are like so bored with their lives that like they just like
the
that's
Karens.
right. Yeah. Because my mom's
Yeah.
always dealing with them. Like they keep having like meetings for like no reason at all,
They
even though
want to
everything.
feel like as important as they're rewarded
Right.
for being, you
Yeah.
know. They want to feel like they really do for society what their
Right.
rewards would justify, but they don't.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
perpetual
Yeah.
problem. But they
Right.
get, they
Right.
work very, very hard at fooling each other and enabling each other,
Yeah.
fooling
Yeah. People
themselves
who
and
just
lying to
want to feel
themselves,
important.
and
Who just want.
yeah, we've got a
Yeah.
terrible.
But that's the
We're in a
thing that.
bad headspace as a people.
Yeah, that well I mean when you're bored like you just want to like make something up to make you feel like you're important or you're doing something
Yeah,
that's thing but
that's like
it's like yeah, even if it's just annoying. Go ahead, Jim.
that's a
Yeah,
good.
we've
Well,
got
that's a
we thankfully have a lot of like parks spaces.
Right.
So people like have a way to get out that's socially distanced. I mean, it's winter, so there's a little bit less of that. But during the winter, we really don't have much of a place to go out anyway.
Mm.
The last Candlepin bowling place closed. The skate rink closed. The and those both closed permanently. And obviously, like our sports stuff is not open, so
Yeah.
there's a
well,
lot
What's
less.
what's the current state of the lockdown there in
So
Massachusetts?
Baker just opened us up some more. He moved us to phase 3. So we're able to have some indoor large events. I think it's like up to 500 people,
Is Baker your
but
governor?
it's 50% of your capacity. So like places like our Hanover Theater would not be at 50% of the capacity with 500 people, but smaller places would be limited by the 50%, not the 500.
So is
Yeah.
Baker the governor of
Yeah.
Massachusetts? Okay, so I didn't
It
know.
would be like a
Mhm.
smoke.
Don't know who that is.
So obviously, a really big challenge for any kind of city level governance is going to be kind of restarting that like lifestyle culture and whatnot. I mean, with
Yeah.
remote
Yeah,
working
Worcester
will
just
probably help you a little
reopened
bit.
Bar
But
Tops.
what
We
are
just
some
got
of the
Bar
ideas you'd have to kind of bring to kind of reverse the closings? I mean, everyone everywhere is pretty much dealing with this, but
Yeah. Honestly, I leave it up to the experts. I have some knowledge in the medical side of things, having grown up with an anesthesiologist, chief medical officer for a father, and my mom's a nurse. So I've got a little bit of like knowledge in the medical world just by osmosis of them talking over the years, but I don't know enough about the specifics of what's going on to really be able to say like, yes, we need to open at this speed and do this or that. I do think that we need to be very careful in opening back up again. We need to make sure that the vaccine is effective enough at closing off the spread. And we're not going to know that for another at least month or two, because we're not going to hit capacity levels that'll start impacting that in a significant way. And at the same time, it's also not you can't be a carrier. So you could still transmit the virus without having symptoms. And that in turn could actually cause more of a spike than less, as people as everything equalizes. So,
Crazy.
but I think that there's some big stuff going on right now with reopening schools. And that I also think it needs to happen. There are students who absolutely 100% need to be in the classroom, especially people who are special needs, do not have home situations that are conducive to learning. It's difficult for people who need speech therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy and all of that stuff growing up. I had occupational therapy when I was younger in elementary school, and with like motor function type things, holding a pencil. I've got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which wasn't diagnosed until this past year. But like I hitchhike or thumb. Like I can do all sorts of weird things with my body, and that was causing motor control issues. So I had to go in for that. And without that, I would have been straining myself further, injuring myself further. And there's students who need speech therapy that are majorly behind or regressing in their process to speak in an understandable way. My nephew's autistic. He should be getting ABA therapy. And they before this school year, they had someone coming to the house to teach him, but now it's online and it's more difficult for him to stay focused on that kind of thing. We need to kind of bring people in stages. So the kids who need that kind of assistance, at a minimum, bring them in for the service and then send them home. So that they can be like, you can do a classroom and then go to the next classroom and clean that one, and then go to the next classroom and clean the second one. And then you can start cycling in the kids who don't have as good of a situation at home and moving them through the system, and start having half days or hybrid learning type situations for the next level of need up. And I feel like there's a lot of focus on elementary students, but I think that there's also a major importance, especially for seniors and juniors in high school, because they need to have, especially the ones who want to go into STEM courses, they need to have those science labs to learn on that side of things, which they haven't really been able to do at home. You can do some things at home. You can send home kits for stuff, but not everyone has a situation where they can
You're not going to use a
explore that.
microscope at your desk. Yeah.
Right.
You don't have the gear. You don't have a chemistry set. You're not going to mix the chemicals.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Well,
there's a change that needs to happen there, but it has to happen slow enough that enough of the teachers and students can get the vaccine.
Yeah. I mean, we've got conflicting needs here.
Or teachers and staff, rather.
It's obviously important that people get developmental therapy during critical periods of development. Very, very important. Also important we stop the spread of the deadly virus. So, which takes priority here? Very much a question of that. I feel like I would just err on the side of caution. I say I would like kids to not be in school for 2 years. I would like it sucks, but I feel like we can adapt and figure out a way to do it well online, because I would like to stop this thing, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anyway. I mean, even if we did that, even if other vectors of society would thwart that attempt, even if the whole government was like, kids don't go to school, we're going to stop the virus. It just takes one uncooperating vector of society to keep this thing going, and we don't have the kind of overarching coordination in this nation we would need to stop it, frankly, and it's not changing. So here we are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Worcester only just came back down below our spring levels.
Yeah.
Like, our spring high, we just passed back down below our spring high.
Right. And
like,
it's not
we're
even
not
the news cycle
out
no
of
longer
COVID.
reflects that, because it's not entertaining to us. So it's disturbing.
Yeah.
Let's all stay home and play video games. You've got a video game design background, the same as me
Yes,
and
I
Moto.
do.
We all three of us do in this channel.
Playing
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Super Smash Ultimate for thing, and I've been having a great time. Just
I've
doing?
been
What are you doing?
I've been Civ 6ing.
go ahead. What?
I love
fixing?
Civ 6.
Civilizations. You're a
Yep.
real nerd.
I
I played a lot of 5 and 4. I just have.
I
not
play
played-
Ticket to
6,
Ride,
Yeah.
Civ 6,
Oh, that
and
tracks.
Banished. Those are my
those
like
all go
3
together.
guys.
Those
When
all,
I
yeah. I
was
can
at
see those
Best
brain
Buy,
processes. You're like,
everybody was asking for those games, Civ this and Mega Man stuff, and
Mega Man's very different from Civ. Very different.
Yeah, but no,
I'm more of a Mega Man guy. Yenni's more of a
cool.
Civ gal.
Yeah, I watched my husband play Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Superman.
Not Superman, Spider-Man. Wow.
Oh,
Spider-Man.
which Spider-Man?
He got the Miles Morales.
Oh, the PS5.
Yeah, we
or-
managed
I
to
don't-
finally
I
get a
don't-
PS5.
What was
I'm a pure
ridiculous
PC
is,
gamer.
in some of the Spider-Man games, they changed this. It's like he would shoot his web up, and it's like, then what is it attaching to? Like the sky? Until they fixed it and they did it with the buildings. It's like, what?
No.
Like, is it attaching to a cloud?
Yeah, some of it is like you're swinging through Central Park and somehow like above the trees.
Man,
His physics never really made any sense, like in the comics or cartoons or anything. Like, I don't know how he swings the way he does down a street, like straight.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wanted to talk about how, like, in school, like when you were talking about being a landlord and like all the things going on in the apartment, it's like, why the hell, doesn't anyone teach us? It's so funny. I don't know if it's everyone's parents or our parents were just like lazy or ignorant or what, but like, like parents really, at least mine, like never really talk to you about like their bills or like what they pay for or like all this stuff, and they just expect the schools to do it, and the schools don't even do it. So seriously, what gives? Like,
I think there's a stigma against discussing money in our country.
right. So weird.
Both with like
so
the learning side and the like jobs. You don't talk about your salary. Like that's a social no-no, which really needs to change because there's no way we're going to have pay
it's profoundly
equity.
disempowering. You can't coordinate his labor. So absolutely has to change.
Really I mean, even like rich parents, some of them don't even talk to their kids about money, and their kids are just as confused as the parents.
Yeah, I went to college not having any understanding of the worth of $1.
Right.
None whatsoever, because
Yeah.
I come from the wealthy world, and I didn't do as bad as my sister with how much we spent in our first year of college, but it was a ridiculous amount of money that both of us spent.
Wow. So
See, it's funny
And
because
like, I'm still coming to terms with the like, yeah, this is what $5 is, this is what $20 is, this is what $100 is, and how much it buys. I still have like misjudgments on a lot of those things, and my husband controls the budget because of it.
what's
interesting.
interesting is like that's almost the opposite problem. Like growing up kind of on the poor side, in that I obviously had a sense of how scarce money was and what things cost, but I also didn't really have a good idea of like how to make money work for me, though.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, like an investing or uh, interest, earning level, and it's almost like a similar but different sort of money issue as far as
Mhm.
or an education issue in terms of
Yeah.
uh, how
Yeah, I
each
never was
class
taught any
kind
of
of
that either.
sees
But
money.
but so Yenny, your parents were like on the upper middle class side or something, or just like on the
Um,
bottom toe?
I grew up in the very well-to-do
Um,
part of Westchester. Um,
cool.
I I went to school with Bernie Williams Jr. And
I
Ron
don't know
Howard
who
lived in
that
my
is.
town. Bernie Williams, center fielder for the Yankees
Oh,
in the late
Scarsdale?
'90s. Armonk,
Armonk, okay. Oh, you said.
okay.
yeah. So I lived basically just across the border into New York from Greenwich, Connecticut.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Um,
I grew up in like Bel Air, California.
mhm,
So have you ever watched that like Fresh Prince of Bel Air?
mhm.
That
Yeah,
that
it's a
that was
similar kind of
uh,
sector of things. And
right.
I
Yeah,
I
but
now live paycheck to paycheck ish.
mm, mm,
Like we're a little bit more comfortable than paycheck to paycheck because our tenants pay our mortgage, so it's mostly just our expenses that those paychecks cover. But
right.
the if my husband were to lose his job, we would lose our house.
But what
Mhm.
about but you're a landlord, so
Mhm.
isn't that like you have a house in addition to apartment? You're just renting the apartment
Mm-mm.
out.
No,
Right.
so we have a 3 family. We live on the first floor and we rent out the other two.
Oh, okay. So
Mhm.
so how would you lose your own place that you're a landlord of?
If my husband was to lose his job, we would not be able to afford the water bills, our regular bills, and
Oh.
It's a
eventually it would just we would not be able to afford
so it's
staying in
like it's a multifamily, like one of those like
three
vertical
decker.
like,
Yeah.
okay. So that
Uh,
yeah, so like she actually lives in the same house or the
Yeah.
same structure as her tenants.
Yeah, in
that's
Massachusetts we've got a lot of 3 families which are like stacked on top of each other, which are called 3 deckers because there's usually 3 decks, although most of the
mm,
buildings have had those removed because they were falling off the buildings.
that's
Um,
sounds dangerous.
the housing stock here in Worcester is old. It is turn of last century old.
Uh,
Pre-depression. So it there's a lot of things that are happening here, especially with fires, because we're still a
oh,
lot of our places still use parlor heaters, which are very, very highly susceptible to catching fire, especially when they're not extremely well maintained. And a lot of them haven't been replaced in decades. So we just had a day where we had 2 house fires. One of them spread between 2 buildings, and 3 people died.
Wow.
Um,
wow.
one of whom, 2 of them died in the fire. One died after injuries from trying to escape the fire by jumping out of the 3rd floor.
Oh,
Um,
uh, did
yeah.
they?
So like, and that's not the only time we've had those kinds of fires here. It's all old timber built houses that the wood is so old that it just goes up. And they're trying to figure out like what to do about that risk for buildings. Um, there was a request out from the city council for the fire department to start doing a study and something on that to figure out what to do to prevent more of them, because they're happening more and more frequently now.
Sheesh. You know, it just seems like things are just rough in this country, no matter where you live, West Coast, East Coast, in the middle. And that's the whole point. I'm so sick and tired of like this coastal elite crap. Like, hey, we got our problems on the coast. We have our leaders that are just incompetent as yours, who, if you live in Kansas. And you know, it's funny, my last episode on I like to call Ariel the Avalanche. I made it, and it's YouTube. It's on my revolutionary thinking, and I'm like, I'm so sick and tired of this whole idea of coastal elites. You can live in Kansas, and you can be a billionaire, and you can be just as elite as the people in Silicon Valley or Wall Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look at the Koch brothers. I'm pretty sure. Like I said,
Well, one
this
of
is what
them
I
lives
said.
in Manhattan, I think. Or
Oh,
at least,
okay.
but, yeah.
Well,
And didn't the other one die?
Yeah, the other
yeah,
one
the
died.
other one died. Yeah, no, but when they were alive, they were from Kansas. They were from smack dab Kansas, the middle of this country. Like, I don't think it gets any more middle than Kansas.
You know
Does
what
it?
I think a lot of
Yeah.
the coastal elite kind of thing is because California and New York dominate the media, and the media is how people
Yeah.
experience other regions.
Well, but
So
here's
it's
the
you're getting your
thing.
news from New York, and you're getting your entertainment from California. So
Right.
you're getting this lens that is kind of dominated by those areas, and it's specifically not just those areas, but the wealthiest and like
Yeah.
most powerful
Yeah.
parts
Of
of
those
those
areas. So I just said I'm sure that a poor person in like Massachusetts or California has a lot more in common with a poor person in like Kansas or Colorado.
You're absolutely right.
Especially
sure,
when
of
you get
course.
out
You
into
know,
the western part of Massachusetts.
Yeah,
It's bad out there.
Just funny. Let me take that to an
Right.
extreme example. I was watching. I was watching some Russian hard bass videos the other day, and hard bass is a genre of music that is chiefly by and for the urban poor people of Russia. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, they're just like like some are like urban and semi-urban and semi-rural, and like all these videos are just like,
Yeah.
if you turn the sound off, they could be like Insane Clown Posse videos.
Right.
Because
Here's the thing.
it's white rural, it's white urban poverty, or white semi-urban poverty, and in like European rooted countries.
Right.
And really, and the larger point is that your class is a larger determiner of your style of life and similarity to other people than your
Geographic location. Yeah. And I think once we, finally lift this veil of BS that all this political tribalism has, caused, we're gonna find out that we have a lot more in common than we do.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a city councilor here who's the head of our Republican committee, and she and I are kind of working together on a parks issue, and we see completely eye to eye on it. Like, there's a bunch of other issues that she's come up with on the city council meetings that she and I both see eye to eye to. And it's kind of because it's especially at a municipal level, like nonpartisan, because it's about the streets. It's about which streets getting repaired, which projects are going ahead.
Yeah.
Like,
really
which zones are getting relabeled as business sectors or residential sectors. I mean, that's more planning department. There's also but that's a municipal anyway.
So on that note, what which are you is Worcester broken down into wards or?
Yeah, so we have 5 districts. Each district has 2 wards. Each ward has 5 precincts.
Okay, so you'd be representative for like the
District
district
5.
or the wards. Okay.
District 5, yeah.
Okay.
So we have 10 wards, but the way we have it set up is that our districts cover 2 wards each. And then we've got 5 at-large city councilors that cover the whole city entirely. And then we've got our mayor, who's the chair of the city council as well as the school committee.
So what does your district in particular kind of look like, relative to the rest of the city?
We're definitely on the more well-to-do side of things. We've got mostly single family, some 2-3 families, but a lot of single family houses. In the northern half of my district, you tend to have like a bit of land with it too. I've got a like I get like 5 feet on either side of my building kind of thing, but there's more than the even further northwestern area of the district. There's places that have like an acre. So that's the like more well-to-do side of things. Also traditionally a little bit more Irish. I'm in a section that's more traditionally Hasidic Jew. There's a synagogue not too far away from here, so a couple of my neighbors are Hasidic. It's it gets a little bit more mixed as you go further south, and then it goes back to mostly single families. We've got 2 housing complexes that are in the middle there from Worcester Housing Authority. And we've got some like elder home type situations. So we've got an interesting mix, but it is heavily on the single family side of things, which is weird in a city. Like I seriously feel like I'm in a suburb.
Might have
And
been
the
at one
city
point.
kind of treats us that way too.
Yeah. Sometimes cities, they absorb their peripheries, and then those peripheries kind of become part of the cities. So that might have happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
But
No, this has
Yeah.
pretty much been the boundaries. Yeah.
I mean, I hated living in the suburbs because unless you had a car, like some
Mhm.
places you couldn't even be able to walk because there's no sidewalk. Like
Yeah.
not even that. It's like there
And where
you're
they
not getting
exist, they're
out of
roller
there.
coasters from the tree roots.
Right, exactly. And Bel Air, like the roads are all like turny and no outlet and cul-de-sacs and I can't stand it. Actually, there was like a big documentary done that showed like how like this isn't normal in other countries. Like all this like having to commute everywhere, always having to look for a parking space. Like you go to Europe and it's like, oh, look, like I can just like walk out and say hi to someone. Here in America, okay, like how many freeways do we have to get on and how long do we have to look for a parking space? What a pain in
There's
the
actually
what?
an interesting historical context to that.
Mm-hmm.
Ayanna Pressley just pointed this out. I didn't know it before. But the Department of Transportation budget has by law been limited, and 80% of its budget has to go to roads and highways. So there hasn't been this historic
Yeah.
funding of other modes of transit because of that.
it
And
was
I think that
And
if anyone's really interested in hearing about like how roads and highways and all of that stuff
right.
started,
And then you
there's
wonder.
a guy in New York City. Oh, crud, I'm blanking on his name. It's not Robert. Is it Robert Moore? No, it's not Robert Moore. Moses,
Yeah.
yes. In New York City, from the early 1900s through the 60s, and how he basically shaped the New York City metro area, out to Long Island, up through Westchester, a little bit into Connecticut even,
His
and
parkways are
all of the
still around.
highways and how he organized them. The the Long Island Expressway was supposed to be wide enough in the middle so that you could put a train down the middle of it going both directions, and they didn't, and he like purposefully didn't do that because he wanted to keep the driving culture, because he viewed it the same way as people viewed pleasure driving in the early 20s into the 30s, and didn't kind of adapt his thinking as time went on to that, and then a
He's
lot of power got to his head, I think.
he's largely credited with like nearly destroying the Bronx for running the I think it's the God, it's the I think it was
Oh, which one?
I-95 the Cross
Yeah,
Bronx
95 was.
Expressway through it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Cross Bronx is horrible.
And yeah, it
That's a
literally
mess of a road too.
yeah. it devalued the property so much that landlords were purposely burning their properties down to collect the insurance
Yeah,
at
and
the
then there's
time.
all these
Damn.
people that are like, elevated tracks are fantastic, like you can get anywhere and you can still drive, but it causes major blight to neighborhoods.
Yeah, it
Well,
tends
I
And
to.
it
mean,
divides them
also
horribly.
Yeah.
like if you're like forcing everybody in cars, like who's that
Mhm.
like hurting the most? And like, there's the car paint. It's like a car is like a like a money sink. It's like a money hole, like insurance, the payments, and
Mhm.
whether you're leasing it or not, and like gas and like all this stuff. And
Yeah,
let's say
gas
you
is
like,
expensive.
yeah, you want to go on like a nice vacation. Well, maybe like you gotta choose between a car and a
Mhm.
vacation. Like you
Yeah,
can't,
I think it's
yeah.
ultimately it's a combination of like two major things, and one is sort of like restricting movement based on class and income and race in some cases, but it's also a matter of unfortunately, I think we had cheap oil at the perfect time back in the early 20th century that it just created energy infrastructure
Right.
and whatnot
But
to encourage use of oil,
but
which made cars kind of the
I
default.
I
LA is
really
actually a
think
really good
that
example.
like like restricting movement and access, it's like a way of like secretly violating people's free speech, because if you have a message that somebody or some organization needs to hear, and we all know that like it's much more personable when somebody hears your message in person and like at a meeting than, unfortunately, if it's just like sent on email or something. But you don't have like, the money to pay for like one of the dinners this really famous guy is going to be at and like compliment them in their clothing until you finally get their ear, and it costs money to get there. It's like
And you also
restricting
have to
people.
know how to do that hobnobbing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it's like really restricting people's freedom and opportunity and speech when, like to get done or to get in life, like what you want to do requires this kind of like hobnobbing and being able to like drive like 10 miles away from where you are to like get a person's ear. So we can talk about freedom of speech like all we want, but like what the hell is the point if no one's like, you can't get people to listen to you because they just judge you, that you can't, if they say, oh, like I really want to meet you, like meet me here at this time and day, and you're like, oh, but like I can't, it's like, and I can't afford the ticket and I can't afford the price of admission, then they judge you, and then nothing gets done in your life because the people are like, oh well, you're poor anyway, like I wouldn't even want to talk to you. It's like, yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah, I think that there's a change that needs to happen in terms of, so I'm a former small business owner and I'm a techie. So I always tried to look for automation ways of making things easier. I've been talking about automation in UBI for 10 plus years now. Um, and there's a lot of things that we can do to engage the public and encourage that kind of discourse without having to make it this big difficult system. We could literally use something like a get satisfaction tool where you can have people submit questions and ask about or suggest different things and have people
Yeah.
directly able to reply to that in real time, and then your counselors or state reps or whatever
Oh
have
yeah.
staff that monitors that and is
Oh
able to chime in and do
God.
stuff. Like,
Right.
that would solve so much in terms of being able to communicate with each other.
Like yeah, we never get compensated for how incompetent and useless like our bureaucracy is.
I mean, our city
For
council right now just said, can we get JPEGs of the PDFs? And a couple weeks back, they called cell signal Wi-Fi. It's also part of that just aspect of it being an older generation that tends to be in government.
Yeah, I hate that.
We need people who are in that millennial time frame or younger to be able to say, like, look, technology has a place. We need to use it. But at the same time, we need to use it responsibly.
Right, yeah.
We can't just go saying, like, oh, let's install some predictive policing.
Right. Yeah, and
Which
the
Worcester's
funny
trying to do
thing
right now.
that I found, wow, that is that, like, I remember, like, when I was in high school, and then I saw they said, like, look at the letters that we wrote to our representatives and the response we got. Like, I don't know if the teacher was ignorant or the people didn't understand or what. I saw that all of the responses were like automated responses that were all the same to these kids' questions. And I'm like, what? Like, so like, what? Why are you posting these on walls so everybody can see them? When there's the same exact result, it's the same exact response. We consider your input, and we'll have someone to like look into it. And it was like to these like genuinely written letters of like just yeah. It was really sad. It was like, oh, okay, so like I
Yeah,
write
there are
something to
some
you.
teachers who do that, like, in collaboration with their office so that it is a decent response kind of thing, but it doesn't happen everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, and like every time, but that's the thing. It's like when your representatives are like inaccessible and they're not listening to you, and they just say like, "Oh, but we're busy and we'll get to you eventually," and they really don't. Yeah, it's kind of like. Yeah, and it's like there's only so much that you can badger the people that are supposed to be representing you until you're just like, you know what, like, just I'm tired, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's also, like, it's tiring for the reps. Like, in Worcester, one of the things that I wanna make easier is if you report a sidewalk having a problem, it can take any amount of time for it to get repaired. They just put out a list of the things that are supposed to be getting repaired this year, and there's an item on there from 1997. 97! I was
Wow.
8!
Yeah.
No, 9. I was 9.
Huh.
And it just, like, it doesn't make any sense to me because there's no way to hold people accountable for
No,
that because
no,
we don't have the master
and
list.
then when you talk to them, like, why don't things work? They go, it's because you don't vote. And they go, well,
Yeah.
when you do vote, you realize it doesn't do anything. And then
Yeah.
they've got no answer for that one. They're like,
But at the
that's
same time, it's like
cynicism. And
when
it's
you
like,
want to check up on whether or not that sidewalk's having any progress, you have to contact your city
But
councilor. The city
right.
councilor has to contact the
But
department. The
but if
department has to
you're
waste time
right,
of their staff to get back to the city councilor, who has to then get back
if
to the
if
constituent.
if
And then if there's a
you're
problem with it, it has to go back through the whole
right,
system all over again. Where if we
r-
just had an online
right,
system with a map that you can say,
but
I have a sidewalk problem here, and they have to
right,
keep track of it on there saying, this is when it's getting fixed, this is how much it's going to be to get fixed, whatever. What's
right.
the status of it? Then people could just go look and
But
see, and you
but
don't have like
if you're
15 people badgering your city councilor about
right,
one stretch of road.
I
but
kind
if
of feel
you're
like it's been since like maybe like the at least the 80s, if not earlier, a kind of concerted effort to make government ineffective at things
right,
and essentially make it so that like literally you cannot push even simple projects through
right,
a lot of the bureaucracy and because it's sort of this and I know decentralization now is like a very popular thing people like, but I think it's one of the downsides of it
but
where because there's no one who's like really responsible or for any particular given thing, things can just kind of fall by the wayside and nothing gets done. And whose fault is it? Well, it's no one's
right.
because it's no one's
But
responsibility.
but if you're like a multi-trillion-dollar corporation, you just make one little quick phone call and it's like, okay, fixed. Here's your tons of
Mhm.
money. Bye.
Yeah, well, I
I
mean,
mean,
they're
we
they're loud.
came
They can
very
totally
close
push
to
it.
having a major Amazon center here. And
Mhm.
we've got an Amazon center distribution site that's opening up in my district over by the airport. That is going to put a lot of 18 wheelers on our road and having planes coming in and out to the airport that's right there. And then we've got a last mile delivery center that's going in where 190 and 290 meet. That is the site of a former mall that they're worried about the traffic that's going to come from it. But my concern is that they're pushing these both as they're going to create jobs. And I'm like, you got to think about the
Either
quality
jobs
of the
that
job
suck.
you're creating too.
Right.
You can't just say, let's create jobs. You have to make sure that they're good jobs.
Right.
They're
yeah,
not going to like
exactly.
kill the people who are doing them.
Right. Yeah. I hate that. I hate this like whole idea of
Or have them all as
jobs.
contractors, which is just
are
ridiculous.
you giving these jobs to like people with PhDs to just like whereas you know like if you studied your ass off like you for video game design, oh okay, you're gonna work in a warehouse where you could have just done that as a high school dropout. Oh wow, you created a job, like dumbass. Like what is the
I would
quality?
be able to get that job.
Right.
Even if I was physically able to, which I wouldn't be physically capable of doing the job. But
Right.
I would be classified as overqualified,
Right.
which is another like horrible place to be in because like especially people who are just coming out of school that haven't done an internship because it costs money to have an internship because you
Right.
can't really work while
All
you've
a
got the
racket.
internship,
Yeah.
which makes internships very privileged, which I'm also technically it goes against like employment law to have interns working on a product or project that the company will directly benefit from.
Yeah.
So
Anyone
a
follow
lot
that?
of internships have you doing like actual work for the company. Those internships are required to be compensated. Whether that's college credit or actual payment, it's still allowed to be college credit only, but not a lot of schools do internship as part of that. And then you have to pay for your credits.
How ridiculous. It's like here, you work for us and you pay us too. Congratulations. You've just been cheated. It's
Yeah.
like yeah,
Like and my privilege enabled me to do 2 internships.
right.
During college and another one in high school. I did an
Right.
internship as
But
part of my
even
high
even
school.
you've been struggling even
Yeah.
after that. You know, like that it's stupid.
I
Like
did an
look,
internship at Atari in Manhattan and Cognito Interactive, which was a
oh,
educational, more instructional games type side
oh,
of
wait a
things.
minute. I just had an idea. We're doing Leyline. There's a guy who worked for Blizzard Entertainment, and he's actually doing this like humanity first gaming idea.
Hmm.
So, you know, there's
Yeah, so
that.
I'm in the project management. I've got my Scrum certification, Scrum Master. So I've been around that, but I also haven't been in game dev for 6
No,
plus years now.
you don't have to be. It's what is it? It's just like
Leyline just a
doing good things.
humanitarian focused group of
Yeah.
former game design, former. Well, it's led by someone who used to work at Blizzard. He was a designer on World of Warcraft of all things, so that's pretty big.
Right.
And
Who?
what's his? Do you know his name, Ariel? You know his name.
Jeremy.
Della Rosa.
He's been on the show.
You know, well, yeah,
The
he's been on
name
our show.
sounds vaguely familiar, but it might just be
He was interviewed on Paget's channel.
Yeah, so he worked on WoW. Which
I
is pretty
honestly have not watched much of Paget's.
Yeah.
Stuff.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Different strokes for different folks.
Right.
I mean, like
yeah.
I catch Matt's show mostly when it was on Twitch, and I would hang out on Twitch in the chat with folks. And I followed his YouTube during the campaign majorly because
Yeah.
I was just literally watching everything that Yang did.
Right.
Through him, and then
Yeah, me too.
I've kind of I listened to a couple Yang speaks. I do a little bit of Trickle Up. I've watched a little bit of T for Y, and I've watched some of this show, and I've got some of
There's such a saturation.
Jules' show.
You know, I think that
There's
like
so many Yang Gang media. I love it.
Ariel, you should put your camera on. You'll have an easier time injecting yourself into the conversation if we can see you, and also more people will watch.
That's funny. All right, so I think that what's his name? This all this like stuff about government like being slow and incompetent and stupid. It's only when they want to be slow and incompetent and stupid. Case in point, Amy Coney Barrett. Boom! Just like right before, okay, we'll just push this through. Case in point, oh, we can just bomb Syria now. Like, oh, and the
Was there
Czech,
ever any doubt? I love the people who
what's
are
the
like
holdup?
shaming people
So,
into voting for Joe Biden, and then you're
you
shaming people into voting for a
it's
warmonger who will
it's
bomb
like,
innocent
okay,
civilians. You know.
so it's selective incompetence. When it comes to like doing things that we don't want and that doesn't help us, you can just get that done. But when it comes to the things that are actually going to help us and actually going to do good for us, oh sorry, like we become stupid now.
Yep.
We
That's
decide
the
when to be
ruse.
stupid and
I-
incompetent.
It's like
and
pro
when
wrestling.
to,
Just as a aside to the bombing thing,
Mhm.
like there was an attack by Iran on U.S.
Mhm.
troops and U.S. installations. So this was a retaliation attack, not a outright like I'm just going to bomb them. So there is a cause for this. Everyone basically just ignored the fact that Iran hit us before. I don't know why. There was someone that got injured even, who was just like, I think it was like a janitor or construction worker, like not even a troop.
Yeah.
So they directly attacked us, and this was a retaliatory response to it. They aimed at infrastructure, not people. So
right.
I mean,
I'm not in
that's the
favor of
PR.
bombing
That's
anyone.
I'm not sure if that's even to be believed. You know.
But still, the thing is that like, okay, but like cutting the checks, it should be more important to help the people in this country
Of
than
course.
to do that. You
Yeah.
know,
If there's money for war, there's money for the poor.
You know, exactly. If,
I like
there's
that.
I literally just came up with it. I'm so
I
smart.
like that. It
Look at
rhymes.
that.
and there's money for
Thank
war.
you.
There's money.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
that,
it's that simple. It's dumb simple, you know? It's like a nursery
we gotta
rhyme.
call, because it's like no, but then it's funny. Like the Republicans say, like, oh, we shouldn't trust the government because the government is incompetent. That's
And
like,
it's true.
Aren't,
and also the Republicans suck.
hold on a second.
You know, what do you do?
Aren't you the people that are making it that way? It's
right?
like it's you know what I mean. So it's like if you hire someone and like they like break a shelf at your store and they say like, oh well, you see, like that's the reason why you shouldn't hire employees because they can't be trusted. But it's like you got hired for the job and you're the ones like making things bad. So just doesn't that mean that you have to go and we have to find someone better? So it's the same thing with the people who say that like, oh well, government is incompetent. Yeah, because we voted for you and you suck.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what Cruz did by going to Cancun. Like literally anybody else who worked at a company who left their boss high and dry during an emergency would get fired.
Right. Yeah.
There's literally no accountability.
And the people are their bosses, and they don't treat us that way.
Right. Exactly.
We're not because electoralism. Our current elections don't reflect the will of the people. That's just the bottom line. So do we have democracy? I don't know. Maybe not.
Instead of in a cocoon, he went in Cancun. Like they all live in their little cocoons and bubbles.
Yeah.
It's so sad. But then we have like a populace that I don't know. It's been so brainwashed with this crap that of like this bootstraps mentality that they're like, oh, but everything is my fault, so I can't blame anyone. But it's like, no,
the system is invisible. Like it's always the fault of the individual who actually does nothing except the right thing over and over again and is failed by the invisible system, which cannot be blamed, identified, or changed.
Think about like your water. If your water is being poisoned and you're blaming yourself for like not working hard enough, how can you work hard when you're actively being poisoned? Like it makes no sense. So it's like, oh no, it's my personal responsibility that these, this electric company didn't weatherize, but that's my fault. Even though I'm paying them, I still didn't like pull hard enough on my bootstraps. It's like so stupid. It is beyond belief.
CHA chat says hi. Has been saying hi for a while in the chat, Yenni. So
Oh,
CHHAY channel. And
yes.
hello.
Hi.
Anyway,
I'm
good.
commenting.
Thanks for
Good-
chatting
good
in
to
the
see you
little bit of
around
good,
here too.
little bit of good comments today.
They just jumped on as both a donor and a volunteer.
Oh, great! That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching the show. I appreciate your attention and time. So anyway, you want to talk about video
Yes.
games somewhere?
The thing, I'm just, more people like you get in at these municipal levels, and you're going to be able to do stuff like you're doing here, except like with your constituents and
I hope
stuff.
so.
I'm just imagining, like,
Yeah, I mean,
how-
I'm doing a listening tour. I'm going around and inviting every single registered voter to sessions with me so that I can hear from them what they want
Good.
and engage them in the process.
Good.
Because I believe in representing people that know what they need.
If there's a way to
Right.
get non-voters to vote for the first time, I think that is it. So I hope you're doing that to non-voters. Are you?
I wanted to do it as an EDDM mailing, every door direct mail. But unfortunately, the amount of time it takes for that to get through the mail system makes it prohibitive for me to actually know when it's going to arrive to be able to actually invite them to a specific event.
You gotta find yeah.
It basically it's taking 3 to 6 weeks sometimes now.
That's not viable. Untenable.
No.
You've got to find
So
electronic ways to. We need to find new ways to reach non-voters for the first time, and it's going to be electronic. It's going to be digital. I'm not sure exactly the avenue, but it can't be that hard.
Here's the thing about this. This is funny. It's just like the three of us, and we're like interrupting each other. But it's good. It's like that.
There was a phrase that came up while I was on Matt's show, cooperative conversation or something like that.
Yeah, Ariel,
Right.
there's something that both you and I share, and I view it as something I struggle with. That I'm a better speaker than I am a listener, so that is why I interrupt people, and I try not to.
It's funny. We were thinking if we were going to be enough for this one, and it seems that we are. So at least that's good. Wait, what was I? Oh, yeah. I remember what I was going to say. I was going to say that here's the thing I don't like about like progressives and Democrats, though, because you said you come from like a wealthy, well-to-do background, and it's like, like I'm not holding that against you. That that's great. And the thing is like I don't care if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. If you're willing to like listen to the people and actually care about like their concerns, I don't care what your net worth is.
Well, I mean, she's not doing well, not great. I mean, not to insult you at all, but clearly you're struggling like the rest of us now. Clearly you're in an identifiable situation. So to dislike you because you once had had more like power, comfort, and security than you did would just sort of be offhandedly cruel, wouldn't it?
It also gives me a unique
What's the sense of that? Yeah, it does. You do.
A lot of my conversations with people during the campaign, during Yank's campaign, I have an understanding of that world to the extent that I can talk to people about like the messaging that reaches that world and the mentality that world has better than somebody who's never been in that world. My family's still all in it, and the best example I can give of how different it is, my family, if I wear the same dress to a function, I'm doing something wrong. Like I have to get a new dress for every function.
Oh, if you wear a dress that's ever been worn before, that's what you mean by the same dress, like a minted new virgin dress that will be used once. That's insanely wasteful and stupid.
Yeah.
Can't relate at all.
But at the same time, like I have my grandparents and my great grandparents.
This is the kind of thing that makes me think, well, if we do fall into the ocean as a continent, it's going to be all right.
You don't understand the level of like this superficiality that like comes with this stuff, because you were talking about like Hasidic Jews living in your community. Let me ask, are they like very wealthy, well-to-do, or like financially struggling?
I don't know. I mean, some
middle-ish.
Yes, it depends. But the thing is that like a lot of wealth wealthy Persian Jews like came to like Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, and like I'm kind of like a part of that stuff. And like I used to hate like these big lavish functions being putting on,
Yeah.
because I just go
You
in a
sense the
corner.
subtext, like
It-
like
like-
this
Yeah, I mean,
wealth isn't.
the way that
it's
weddings
not.
happen in New York.
Right.
We have the wedding factories, I
Yeah.
like to call them,
Oh God.
where they have like everything in one building. You get
Just
married there.
stupid.
You've got the catering that's built in. People can pick what food they want when they're
Oh,
sitting down at the table. And when we came up here, my family had to adjust to the fact that up here they don't do that. They do not allow you to pick your meal at the table. You have to pre-select what you're going to have for your dinner at someone
it
else's
was
wedding,
like
or it's
when
just going to be buffet.
when I was like turning 13, and I had like a little tiny bar mitzvah thing. It was like we got invited to like bar mitzvah after
Mhm.
like all of his stuff, and I was
The
like
whole school gets invited.
so
Yeah.
freaking the whole school. I was exhausted.
You know-
It was like, oh my God, like another one of these things. Like they spend money on the DJ and on the
The
vid
dancers.
and the food and the dancers, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, aren't you having fun? I'm like, no, I'm bored and I want to leave.
Right. Exactly. Because
Like-
what is the subtext?
Oh, see, I had fun at those. I love dancing. Like
great.
one of the things that I wanted to do when I was going through all of that, I was like, I could totally be that dancer, like teaching people how to do the dances that we're doing with like
like
this stupid like line-ish dances that really don't belong on a dance floor.
Well, I
ever.
mean, if they
But
belong
it's
anywhere, they
fun.
belong at a wedding,
Like,
right?
it's
That's what a
the
wedding's
thing.
about. I mean,
Yeah,
where
well,
else do groups get
I-
together and do those bizarre line dances
I-
other than country
I
western
just-
bars?
I
Yeah.
just don't like loud
Which I
noises.
like doing.
That's
loud
great, yeah.
in general. So that kind of made me like the odd one out, because
Mm.
it's like just a party where the music is so loud you have to like scream at the person next to you, and I'm like, okay.
I'd
and
wear
then,
earplugs.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
all the time it's like I always want to like leave, and I always had to like push my mom or yell at her and like scream because thing, and then everybody's like there's a thing that
Yeah.
it's like not everyone is that kind of person, but
Mhm.
if you grow up in like an environment and a family like that, it's like they get offended that you don't like the same things that they like, and it's like, what, like, I
Oh
don't
my
care.
goodness, whenever we would go
Yeah.
to like the beach or the pool, I would sit under the umbrella and read. And they're all like, come out in the sun. I'm like, no.
Nope.
I want to read. I'm having fun over here. Let me enjoy myself.
I think that's what we share as common in like gamers a bit. It's like sometimes like I just like, being at home and like being my business. And if I am talking to someone, I like it not to be too rowdy. And I'm not really that extroverted. And it's like, but then when you're among a family that is the opposite, it's like you just can't, that's funny. Like we share that, both opposite sides, opposite coasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thing, and
I grew up in a town that was like half Jewish.
oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
like I was around it. Like I'm Roman
Right.
Catholic, but like half of my school felt
Right,
like
yeah,
was
yeah. That's
so
one
I
of the-
was invited to all of those parties. I completely understand what you're talking about
Oh,
with like how
wow, yeah.
crazy they are.
Yeah, exactly, and it's
And then
it's-
we Christians had to have our own 13th birthday party to match because like we felt left out.
keeping up with the Jews.
It's funny.
is-
Well, I mean, the inversion of that is how Hanukkah became a Christmas, which Hanukkah never was
Mhm.
anything important. I'm not Jewish. I mean, Jim, I'm Jewish. I'm not religious. I'm not like, so this isn't like a,
Your heritage wise.
right. My heritage is Jewish and I kind of know some of the stuff. But so Hanukkah, not ever a very important holiday, a minor holiday by all accounts. Elevated to a sort of counter Christmas because of the strange way we conceptualize parity in like commercial American culture. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful.
That's
that
kind of funny
yang.
in some ways because Christmas itself has sort of been de-religious, like has been
That
a
too.
lot of the context has been removed.
Yeah.
Like they celebrate it in Japan, and that's Christianity is not a big deal there.
Right.
Well, in Japan, it's also not a like family thing. It's you go out on like a special date with somebody kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's like Valentine's Day.
Yeah. And then they've got Valentine's Day and White Day.
They got a lot of
If one
dating
would-
holidays in Japan because they have a
one
very
thing-
low birth rate. So, they got
Is
to do
that-
what they can do. I know.
is that
Okay.
like
Almost as low as us.
the Yang
First-
campaign
I know that
really
works. Yeah.
brought like kind of like introverted people together to kind of like it's
Mhm.
okay to be us, to not want to go to that loud party or
I mean,
that annoying,
yeah.
just like
I get
sit
a
home,
migraine from them.
play games. You know what I mean? Because like we're like in this annoying ass culture that's all about like work and then have a party, and you're not like that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, especially while I was playing MMOs, it's like I am having a party.
Right.
I'm in a
It's a
party.
different kind of escapism.
And I
Or when I'm
remember,
playing
like,
D&D, it's like I'm in a party.
some people telling me like, aren't you happy that like you got out of home and like you're over here? And then I'm like, no. Like,
I mean, there are people, Ariel, whose regular lives are so miserable that they're just looking for the break from the and to just sit in a place where they can't be made to do any work and to get drunk.
not
I
even
mean,
So
work.
there was
like,
a while there where I was too stressed to even game. I was just sitting in front of the TV, like just absorbing the colors that came out of it, like barely even paying attention to it.
let me tell you something funny. I'd rather be working at like my job at a Best Buy than to go to like a loud party or go to a place where people are super obnoxious and annoying and they can't shut up. I'd rather be working sometimes because at least when I'm working, like I feel a sense of like I'm doing something that I may even enjoy. Like when I worked at the gaming section, I enjoyed that. So I would rather be working at a gaming section in like a company or corporation than go to a super loud, obnoxious party. It is more work for me to be around rude, obnoxious, loud, annoying people than it is to actually work.
Yeah, I also I worked at a game store, tabletop oriented, where they were doing like Warhammer 40K and board games, and there's a Lord of the Rings tabletop game that I really liked, but never really grew into a thing here in the US. Magic the Gathering was a really big thing there, and I didn't get it. Like, I just couldn't understand the draw. I couldn't understand what all of the different cards were and how they interacted. So I ended up getting let go because I didn't know enough about Magic.
It's I actually like single player a lot more than multiplayer because I always like a good story. Like there's nothing more fun to me than like a good like story where you can see like the progression.
Dragon Age, Mass Effect.
Yeah.
You want a story, watch a movie. I like a big series of interconnecting systems, baby.
Right. Yeah.
Like Skyrim?
Like Rogue or Street Fighter 2. Or like Skyrim, like anything, a video game. I like mechanics. I like a crunchy game, an abstract mechanical game. Payday 2 is my favorite game of all time, I think.
You also like it with some like active elements though. You're not like a big like.
I like a lot of stuff. I like a game I like be able to express myself creatively, to cooperate, to compete, to.
I think like a lot of stereotypes of people like us is that if you don't want to go to the club or like go to this like concert, then like you're not really living life. And then I'm like, well, fuck you. Like
I mean, like I got my
who the hell
start
are you
in
to,
the
like,
gaming
tell
world
me-
with role playing on AOL.
Right.
It's like who the
Like
hell
I
are
was
you
I
to
was an
tell me-
AORG
That's
role
nice.
player in the chat room.
That's very nice. That's kind of a nice start, actually, I think, right?
It was definitely an interesting world to be part of because
yeah.
we had people from all over the world. We had, like, I got exposed to so much different kinds of life through that. We had people that would disappear for a month or two and they'd come back and they'd be like, I couldn't afford the internet.
Right. But
We had people who were in the military who died overseas, and their wife came on a couple of months later and let us know that they weren't going to be coming back. And we would have like our game characters just get together for a funeral for them.
but
Like
yeah,
it was a community, and I miss it so much. But like
it's
one of my longest friends, I've only met him in person twice. He's down in Alabama, but like we stay in touch. We're still friends with each other. It's and that's from like the late 90s that we started getting involved in that. And then I've got a game out of England that's got a lot of Romanian people that I play on it with called Star Fury. It's a um, browser-based Empire war game that got its start in like 2002, and I was helping on some of the art and a little bit of the like development of features and things like that back when. Didn't have all that much of an involvement with it, but I was a player. And we used to use IRC to chat with each other. Like
Yeah, I think IRC might be in the
pre-Discord.
guts of Discord. If it's not the guts, it's at least in the inheritance of Discord.
ICQ and MSN Messenger,
When I was about
Yahoo
13,
Messenger.
I used ICQ, right? Yeah. All the
Yeah.
whole...
like my whole thing is like who are these like extroverted people sometimes, either in our families or in communities and stuff, to like judge us and say like, oh, but like you're not like living your life or enjoying it. It's like, what the hell? Like you're not a mind reader. Like, how would you know that? Like,
So who's
just
been saying
the
that to you lately?
arrogance
Like,
to-
let's
to-
I
I don't really get that as much lately.
yeah.
Mhm.
I haven't
I
been
feel
buying
like
it.
No,
I feel
no,
like you tend to grow out of that, like as a thing as you get older. Like people stop having that expectation quite as much.
yeah.
Well, people also don't observe it as much. So
Right.
you're not necessarily as connected in that way where people are touching in to know that you're doing all of that much with it. So it's not as like when you're around family, especially when you're living together, it's observed constantly.
Mhm.
Where when like me
Yeah.
moving out from my family's house into college, they didn't know what I was doing on a daily basis. They didn't know if I was going out and clubbing and going to ravers, or if I was sitting at home doing nothing. So there's a distance that happens when you leave home, I think.
Yeah.
I think in a way we're discussing virtue. There is a sense of virtue to like going out and
Signal,
being
yeah.
involved in like, you know, a very expensive, the sort of standard public partying. It's the way you're supposed to spend your nights and weekends. Some just think that that is virtuous. Like it is the right thing to do because it is done. It's very strange,
I
you know?
did first like few weeks of college, and then I was just like, these people are shithole.
Right, but like I really would
Like,
like to. I would
there
like
was
to get
a-
someone who thinks it's
there was a
virtuous
kegger I was
on the
at
show and
at
like
a-
really talk to them about why they think that. And seriously, like maybe they could convince us, or maybe we can convince them. We could figure. There's a real disconnect here. What is?
Yeah, I mean,
the
I was
virtue?
at a kegger for a fraternity at University of Vermont. I was at Champlain College, which like UVM was this like big monstrosity, and Champlain College was this little dot. So we would always go to their parties because we didn't have parties like that.
Right.
And the place that that night, they had 2 kegs. They were serving women out of one and men out of another, and the women's one was drugged.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the.
And so,
not,
like,
not
I
surprising.
saw that they were doing that, and I was like,
Yeah. Why would there be
my
two? If you
girlfriend
see two
out of
kegs,
the room and being like, "We're not staying
what are
here.
you
You're gonna get drugged."
Oh yeah, like I remember I did a road trip with like I hope they're not listening to this. Some of my family to like San Francisco, and I was losing my freaking mind. Like they spoke in the car, and like there was some weed, but it's okay, it's legal here, and like
I mean, even if it's not, it's still okay.
the thing the thing that's funny is like the older people, like the boomers, were driving the millennials crazy because they couldn't control themselves and like we could. and it
Yeah.
was like, okay, stop. And yeah, it was just too much noise, and like spending time in a car with like, like some of the people trying to like get food in the back, and like their thing was showing, and then like poking around stuff.
My goodness, vacations with my family were sometimes an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's something like that. And then when I vacationed alone myself, I went to like Europe and Sweden and Tokyo and stuff. I loved it because I was beholden to like nothing. I could just like leave, go to where I wanted, come back, memorize the routes, and just have a blast. And I didn't have somebody there to argue that like, we're doing this, we're not doing that, we're doing this, we're not doing that, screw
My
that. Like,
favorite example of that was we took a cruise in the Mediterranean. We went to Ephesus in Turkey. And we walked through, and they had just opened the huge museum that's there with all of the different artifacts that they've found. And I am a huge history buff. Like, I was like begging to go inside there and like, no, we have to get to our next thing, and then we got to get back to the boat. I'm just like, but please.
right, yeah.
They wouldn't let me.
Right.
In San Francisco with the Science Museum. And I'm like, oh, I have to see the Science Museum. I went there, and then all of a sudden I get a call. I won't say from who. Where the hell are you? I'm like, God damn it! I'm just in this one. We need to coordinate. You can't do this. And then you know what I found out? The place that they wanted to go to was like a block away from where I was. Then I walked over there, and then I went to the person that shouted at me, and I'm like, did you need to shout? Did you need to yell? You were right there, and I was right over here. Like, what the hell? And then they're like, oh well, I guess I made a mistake. Sorry.
We've had some pretty bad incidents that caused major rifts in our family. One person, like, literally, we were in Nairobi, getting on the planes to come back from our safari, and one of my family members completely flipped her lid and started screaming at me and my sister, and like shouting at my 12-year-old sister that she was a whore in front of the police at the airport. And like it was a nightmare. The trip back, all of it, like it completely ruined the trip because people just can't keep their shit together sometimes when they're with family.
I don't
And like
get it.
I've got a big Italian family. We are not quiet when
Yeah.
we're upset about something.
Same thing with Iranian families. Any one of the I countries, Iran,
Mhm.
Italy. Yeah, it's interesting to like.
Mediterraneans are loud.
Yeah, Mediterraneans are like pretty loud, and I remember like in my like we used to have like fights. We lived in like a 2-story house, and then it would be like a fight that I could hear the arguing from the second floor, and then all of a sudden when the arguing stopped, just like pretended that nothing happened, and then just said,
Mhm.
okay, so where are you going for vacation like next summer? I heard that this is like, no, that whole thing just never happened. That
Mhm.
all that loudness, and it just like they just pretended it like went
Keeping
away.
up appearances is a
Right,
thing.
yeah.
It's a very strange way
Yeah,
of
they're
life.
I really liked Pink. I still like Pink. And the album Family Portrait came out right as my parents were getting divorced. So like that song really spoke to me. I have no idea if any of you know what song I'm talking about,
I'm
but it
afraid
was
I
like
do
in
not.
our
I do
family
know who she is.
in our
but-
family portrait, we looked pretty happy. Let's play pretend and act like it comes naturally.
Oh, okay.
Is one of the major lyrics from it. And
yeah, that reminded me. There was this hilarious thing where I don't know if you guys remember Mad TV.
Oh yes.
Mhm.
But okay, you do. So then like it was one with Will Sasso, and I don't know who it was. Right. So this wife and husband were like screaming at each other, and then the guests came in, and they're like, come in, have some food. And then he's like, can I talk to you in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. And then they went into the kitchen, and they absolutely like screamed at each other. And then they came out of the kitchen like, oh yeah, so that was nice.
We all, I believe, I think every single one of us in this room saw our parents act with complete duplicity towards their professed very good friends when we were
Right,
little
yeah.
kids. You know, and they would have a fight right before a party, and it
And
fucked
then
us
and,
up.
then-
It
and
taught
then
us to be
then
duplicitous, you know, or it taught,
and
at
then
least taught us that people are duplicitous.
right, and then they
And I
tell
really
And how to
hope,
math.
I really hope that can stop with the next generation.
right, and then you know what else they do? They tell their kids to shut their mouths.
Mhm.
Don't tell them that. They tell their kids, they're like, they're coming, and don't say this. And
Seen
don't
but
say
not heard.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when someone is coming. You're closed. Did you put this? They're
Yeah,
coming.
it's like if someone's coming, you have to put up this ruse, present this family that doesn't
Yeah.
exist to them.
Masking.
Right,
yeah.
The
so,
technical term for it's masking, and like
And,
I can adapt myself and the way I'm talking to people and the words that I use based on the people that I'm around
Mhm.
in an almost acting kind of way.
it is a performance.
Because it is a skill that some people end up having to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people more than others. People who are introverted end up with it a little more than people who are
Right.
extroverted.
Especially
But it basically, I lost who I was
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
because I was masking so much.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Same thing happened to me. I always
I think
remember
that's at the
like
core of a lot of
like-
mental, of what
like
we conceive
in
of as mental illnesses, you know?
in the car on the way to some function or on the way to some place, it would always be like, when we get there, don't say this, don't
Oh
say
yeah,
that.
that's the best.
Tell them this, and I'm like, oh, like, can you stop?
You know what the absolute worst was? That's just like when I remember from like my mom would give me like a list of falsehoods to maintain, you know,
Yeah.
to relatives, and then as an adult, I'm like, Mom, I don't trust you. And she's like, Why? I've never lied to you. I'm like, Mom, you would like give me a complicated list of falsehoods to maintain. Nothing important. It was all shit that didn't matter that she had crazy anxiety about.
Oh yeah, and they always want you to like talk yourself up in front of whoever the hell.
Right.
You're not doing this. Tell
Because
them
you're
this,
just so afraid of just presenting what is for no fucking
Right.
reason.
and you know that they're doing the same thing to their kids.
But anyone can just say no at any time, you know? That's just the thing.
Right.
At
Yeah,
some
yeah.
point, someone says no, and then someone else says no, and eventually
just like-
people stop doing it.
Right, it's just like a veil on, and then in the corporate world too, it's like no, we want them to buy, so like talk this up and talk this up. It's everything is so like, or like don't say this and don't say that, and it's everywhere. It's so toxic.
Duplicitous.
Starting to change, especially like with the Me Too stuff. That really broke a bit of that seal on what people would talk about. A little bit. A little bit.
Right. I mean, I just want to live in a world where there's just like freaking transparency, and everybody thinks if you just tell the truth that they're so afraid of being judged and things. So like, okay, like I don't care, like judge me. I want to be me, and maybe it's none of your goddamn business, you know. But no, we can't do like job interviews.
I think we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Just a 10-minute warning.
Anybody
Yeah.
else to go? That's fine.
This has been fun though. It's like it's nice to just share like authenticity.
Okay, I
you
mean, I'm
know?
saying we could keep going if you want. I can go for a bit. If anybody
Yeah,
wants
I
to
can-
drop out, that's fine.
I'm like not in such a hurry, but I'm just really enjoying that we can, like, one of the things I love doing in my life is just calling out bullshit. I'm just a professional bullshit call outer, if that even exists, you know. Yeah, it's thing, and people hate that. Some people like it, and some people can't stand me for that, but I don't care. I'm just not
You do
into.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just doing me, and it's like, but we live in a, in such a time where people want to maintain so many like BS appearances, and for people who are authentic, it just gets me nauseated, it's just
Mhm.
like, hey, like we don't have to pretend to be someone. It's funny, like when you're young, like you play pretend, and then when you grow, you get it, and it's like, oh well, that was just pretend. But it's like, god damn it, we're not supposed to play pretend from the time that we die. Why
Right.
do
When does the pretending end? Oh, it actually doesn't. Oh.
Mhm.
yeah.
We're
Oh,
Refluence. Thank you for
Refluence.
joining us. Welcome to the show.
look at the show. He's all the way from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. he's also creating like a gaming for good health.
He's a gamer, right? Yeah, he
True.
wants to do something with gaming and altruism. He isn't sure exactly what,
Yeah.
as far as I understand it. I hope I'm not misrepresenting him.
Games for Good is like a fantastic sector of the game world.
I think it's a good impulse, but I think most often it just is used as like a sort of corporate nothing, just a sort of a...
Well, it depends on where you're talking about. So like there's an indie culture around Games for Good. If I remember correctly, Games for Good might be an organization, or it might just be
I'm not talking about it, I'm just talking about a sort of milieu of many organizations.
Yeah, I know they do a conference in Manhattan.
Yeah. I mean, I love gaming and I love humanity and charity. But I just keep seeing events that don't seem, that just seem like a pat on the back, that don't really seem to be doing any good, that are touted as altruistic events by the AAA gaming industry. And even some of the larger indie studios are really not...
They're not really indie anymore.
Yeah, they're not really indie. And at the end of the day, that like this sort of charity work that they do, they end up going to these sort of phony charities that don't produce results for any people that don't work there as a business.
No Man's Sky.
Yeah, and it sort of ends up being just a way for the corporate elite to get a feather in their cap and elevate their status and say, "Look, I'm also an altruist," but it doesn't really, Anyway, that's I've
like Kurt Schilling and 38 Studios.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm not sure who that is.
That poor thing. That happened. Yay.
What happened?
Kurt Schilling was a Red Sox player.
Oh,
and 38 Studios did Amalur, Kingdom of Amalur.
I'm not familiar.
It was a while back. It was like 10 years ago.
Refluence, do you know Kingdom of Amalur?
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's a RPG.
Okay.
Yeah. But like when I was working at out in Western Mass at Hit Point Studios, it was like right around 2012-13 that 38 Studios closed, and we had a lot of people that were like commuting from the Providence area up to Western Mass, which is a 2-hour drive, and not impacted by traffic. But it's still a 2-hour drive. So they had like a house that people could stay at up by the studio for the people that were having to commute from there before they could move out to Western Mass. And then the studio lost their contract with Microsoft, and half the staff got laid off, including me. I had 10 months of employment. It was my longest gig in the game industry.
Very common story.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for the day where like we get the flying cars, so all this commuting crap can finally just...
There'll be nowhere to go when we get the flying cars.
Right, yeah.
Well, no, flying cars will just have traffic in the air.
The Tesla Roadster's coming next year, and you can't afford it, and there's nowhere to go with it. So
3D space, so you'll have a lot more... You can just choose a different altitude,
Well, yeah, but, I mean, look at the Jetsons.
Right, yeah. They
still have traffic.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's a good case study in reality.
And
rooted.
Fifth Element, they still had major traffic.
Lilu knows, yes.
Yeah, there'd be like a lot of compensating for the air traffic and whatnot.
Yeah. Air traffic control. I guess we already have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, no. If there was a way to like just park the car in the air and then you'll like jump down with like a wingsuit or something, or just use the wingsuit, like that can actually fly. That's the funny thing when they talk about yeah, go ahead.
They actually did a test recently. I just saw it on Twitter last night of a powered wingsuit.
Oh yeah,
that got someone up to like 300 kilometers an hour.
That's because flying for me is when you start at a low altitude and then you're at a higher altitude. When they say, "Oh, these people in a wingsuits, they're flying," they're not flying; they're gliding.
Yeah,
they're just
but it is a step.
Right.
Like how far he was able to get and how fast he was able to go. Like he was able to maneuver through mountain passes and all sorts of stuff.
That would be cool.
That's like a next step towards.
Yeah. So I'm just looking for where you can, if you end up higher than when you started, that's fine.
Oh, like jetpack guy. You're in
Right.
LA.
Like the jetpack. Yeah. Oh, I haven't even heard. I thought he was like a Swedish guy or something, but
Well, no, it happened in LA. I think it was LAX that he launched out of.
Yeah, I
look
remember that story. There's a jetpack guy, like, and there's like sightings or like people in airplanes.
Yep.
They saw it. I was like, oh, interesting.
Nice. Yeah, like this was the future I was looking forward to. Not a future where everybody's talking about like, oh, social media is like destroying our sociability and like rotting
Yeah.
brains and stuff. I was looking like to the future of like interplanetary travel and like creating abundance and like jetpacks and stuff.
Had we continued space travel the way we were when we went to the moon, we'd be on Mars.
Well, yeah,
Right.
we hit a point where market capitalism stopped incentivizing innovation and started disincentivizing it, and we've been there for 50 years. So,
well, I
that's
mean,
that.
the change in the tax structure at the end of the 80s didn't help.
No, oh, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a whole interconnected piece of the puzzle.
Well,
That's another thing that you end up with not realizing is a municipal level thing. Your property taxes are voted on by your city council and select boards.
Yeah.
Realize that money is just like a construct and a story we made in our heads.
Yeah, and if it doesn't serve us, then maybe it isn't the way we should live our lives.
It's a unit of measurement. That's what money. It's just a unit of measurement of like perceived value,
social value
is what it is. And the thing is like we start treating it. It's like, what do we really value? If we value like happiness and joy and like good mental health and innovation, then it's like, okay, then just give the money because they're willing to.
We also need more time banking.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Man, where's Harry Hirsch? You know, he is king time banking. Every time
Every
time me or someone else says like, you know, this isn't going to work because of why, he's like, no, it's going to work because of time banking. It's like, okay, is it going to happen? I mean, this is a big theory. Show me the implementation.
Banking needs a large support system to be very detailed and organized and have people to help management and the technology support behind it to actually make it work. That a lot of the time banking systems that are currently out there don't do. If I was looking for tools to help do a time bank for the Yang Gang during the campaign and right after in early HFM days, and none of the software is decent.
Right, yeah. It's such a circumlocutive task, and let me tell you why time banking won't accomplish that goal, because that goal of leaving behind, of correcting the social credit of people based on their money, of correcting the value of money as it relates to a person's contribution to society, that is more easily accomplished by creating an alternate currency to the US dollar that is used in lieu of it. So people holding the dollar are left holding a currency that represents corrupt, invalid social worth. And there will be a crash, and people who are doing real economic contributions have been working in another currency for a while. Gosh, I think that might be Bitcoin.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. But at the same time,
you're putting a little money in Bitcoin if you have any.
Time banking is a solution to our situation.
Yeah,
I just think that it's a good system to have it as an option.
When it becomes inevitable that we cannot work with the economy of the people who own a sort of criminal-based economy, we're going to have no choice but to create an alternative currency, and we don't have the logistics to make time banking work for us.
Kind of a good dollar, it's going to be like a UBI cryptocurrency that's on one of those ledgers that no one can screw with. I think we're going to have to, like, we're headed in that direction. I just hope that like, but it's going to be much better if we can just get all these old people who make me fume out and just install like younger, better people in these positions. I mean, you should have seen one of these like Washington DC, whatever the hell, where like 3 people like old were just like, or like sleep, and it's like, what the hell are we paying them for? They're literally sleeping on the job, and they're contracting Alzheimer's disease like Dianne Feinstein, and I don't know, it's not okay.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
one of my opponents is 70 years old. He was on the city council in 1991 to 97. He got off the city council when I was 9. Like,
Yeah.
weird.
I
Do you think you're
understand
gonna
that
beat
like
him?
he wants there to be a conservative person in the race
Yeah. Do you think you're gonna
because he
beat him?
definitely fits that bill. When me and my other opponent, Attell, are more on the progressive liberal side of things. But like, we need to move to a point where the generation that is going to have the future we're building is building that future.
Right.
Because the
And we're
people
just
who are
not
in
empowered to. Yeah.
that boomer and older generations are not, they're not caught up on technology. They're not caught up on what the future is going to look like, because they just can't necessarily. I mean, granted, there are always exceptions. There are always people who are in those generations, like Markey. Ed Markey, our state senator, is very good at being on that, like making progress in a way that is actually looking forward. So is Bernie, so is Warren. Like, there are people who are of those ages that are more on that, like, understanding what the hell's going on. Not necessarily that they understand all of it or can fix it with the things they have, but they get the problem and they get that there needs to be a solution in certain ways. Meanwhile, we've got other people like Pelosi and the other, like, more establishment Dems, who I refer to as dinos because they're Democrats in name only. Then there's also rhinos, which is most of the Republicans in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts Republicans are a whole different beast than
Yeah, we just call
Republicans
both
anywhere else.
duopolists because they're the same people working for the same people. They're both duopolists. Anyway, yeah.
But like, I think that there's a need for people who are in the generation that is going to be around for what we're building and what's changing to have a say in what's changing,
Right, and
and how we move forward into that progress. And that's part of why I think ageism does a little bit have a place in politics. As much as I hate ageism in general, in terms of like not being able to get a job because you're too old for it, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, we've experienced, at least me experienced, reverse ageism, or I don't even know if you call it that. You always judge for being young. You're always told, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not gonna know.
I'm 33 and I still get that.
Yeah, it's same here. I mean, it's like, when is it gonna end? And then it's like,
it's all relative. You can go until you're 50 if they keep you impoverished in a sort of pseudo childhood forever. So, if you don't have to develop social maturity until they let you, or you force them to.
Right, exactly. So it's all like, oh, well, like you don't understand, how this business works or how this money works. Well, asshole, it's because you didn't teach me. It's because none of the thing that
and
you
that's
said,
by design.
And that's by design. Exactly. It's like, oh, well, who are you? Well, then maybe you should have taught all that stuff, and you didn't.
No,
and now
it went just like they want. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's
like this, and now there's no class mobility, and there's nothing.
Psychological warfare, that's for sure, especially through our TV screens. Every time you see information about, like, the stock market going up, and it's like, oh, this is so good. Why is it good, asshole? It's not good. Like, it has nothing to do with my fault. For who?
Right,
yeah, for who?
Well,
yeah.
Well, Yenni, I would like to introduce you to something. Introduce, yeah. Well, if you're part of, you ever heard of Leyline?
Yeah, we talked about that a minute ago.
We talked about it, yeah.
Okay. You already know. You're already in the loop.
Yeah.
That's good then.
You can just go to.
I feel like that would be the future of, like, cryptocurrency on top of, like, morality kind of deal. Like, you get like good coin. Was it good
dollar?
Yeah. Good dollar.
But good dollar is separate. It's not Leyline.
I know. I understand, but like in a similar concept. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, though, but with Leyline, you get Leyline points that you can later get, like, convert into real life
Right.
cash through gift cards and stuff. And it works. I've
I
done
think
it.
that there's like a big culture of that needs to go away, though. Because like we get all these phone games and systems that are like
Yeah.
take surveys and earn money, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, you would be better off literally standing on a street corner tossing flowers at people and getting money for
Right.
them
Yep.
Right.
than
Yeah.
you would be
Just give
sitting
people
there
money.
taking these surveys, because you got like a half-hour survey that you get 10 cents from.
Right, or like a coupon for
Yeah.
$1 off Taco Bell, which at least
Yeah.
it's Taco Bell, but
I mean, I did some hidden shopper type stuff.
yeah,
Where I would go to like restaurants and I'd get like paid meals, which was
Yeah,
cool.
great.
Like I
Yeah.
tried some stuff at like Arby's that I wouldn't have tried otherwise. But like that kind of mystery shopping is also not a great thing, because you have
if
to
you're
pay
getting
for
a
it
UBI,
first to get
that kind of
reimbursed.
stuff is
That's the thing,
better.
like, you
That's
gotta
not as
read,
exploitative
like,
if people have
how,
a baseline, but
like, our whole generation has been infantilized,
Yep.
and we're being but we were groomed to be infantilized. We didn't choose to be infantilized. And every single time you ask, like, oh, we should be compensated for, and this is not right, they say, like, oh, don't be greedy, you'll understand when you get older. We already are older.
yeah.
We're still getting that shit, and
And now we're getting it from both sides with the
Right.
whole like Zoomers and
Yeah.
Exennials or whoever
Whatever.
the other. I don't remember what the names of the
XYZ.
generations.
Zoomers are the ones after
Yeah,
millennials.
Zoomers. Yeah.
But
young
the Zoomers don't think millennials are cool, and I'm just like,
That's just more divide and conquer
we
by
didn't
legacy
think the
media. It's
people
not even
above us were
reality.
cool either.
I don't even think
Yeah.
that represents reality. Talk to a real
Well,
Zoomer.
that's-
See if that's the truth. Just don't go by the legacy
Yeah.
media's vague impressions.
Oh,
I mean,
no. But like, but we don't understand emoji use now.
yes, we do.
Yeah.
And I think if you ask,
But the crying, laughing face with the
Right.
2 teardrops out of it is it's dead. It's passé. Like we're not
Okay.
using that anymore. We're
every
using the little dead
generation
head.
has its own subculture. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's theirs. We don't have to. We don't have to
I
have
mean,
the
like, I
mastery
still
over
use-
emojis they do. It's beautiful that they have.
I
it.
still use
Who cares?
ASCII emojis.
Right. To like frame that as a problem is the problem. That's not
I
a
like my
problem.
dancing
It's
dumb.
it's
Well,
fine
and I
that the
mean-
generation that comes after us has more mastery over a communication technology that didn't exist when we were born. That's the human story. It's normal. It's not a problem. But everything
Right.
has to be framed as a problem to keep us divided.
Yeah, that's the thing. Kind of like the elites when it goes back to on the coast when there are tons in the middle of the country too. I think that the more we do more of this, and the less we look at these stupid one-way medium journalists on like Fox and MSNBC and all of that other hot trash, the
Fox needs
less
to stop being allowed to be called news.
yeah, the less we're going to be divided, because we're not going to get our information from people whose sole job and their overprivileged, overpaid asses just are there to divide and conquer. We take the oxygen away from these people. Take the oxygen away from Rachel Maddow, from Sean Hannity. I call him Sean Vanity, and Rush Limbaugh is gone. And just take the oxygen away from them. And who gives them oxygen? Our parents. Sorry.
Yeah, the advertisers and the people who support them. And cut the
Yeah.
cord. Hey.
I think
our-
there's
a
a
plea
weird
to all of
place
our
because-
geriatric parents. Cut the cord. Just stop
I
paying
mean, like,
attention
my
to the legacy
family-
media.
my family used to be a lot more, I guess, reasonable, or at least I perceived them to be.
Yeah.
But Fox News, like, my mother was a middle ground kind of party line misher, and now she's very much on the Trump train.
Yeah.
The same with mine.
She moved down to Florida, started watching Fox News because their
Yeah.
weather was better, and it has literally brainwashed people.
Same
Right.
here.
Yeah. Conversely, my mom's riding with Biden. You know, I call her a few months ago, and I'm like, hey, everything's terrible. We've got a choice
I
between
voted
two.
for and pushed people to vote for Biden because I could not risk us getting another 4 years of Trump because our democracy would be gone.
Well, Biden has gotten us into a new war that Trump didn't get us into, but Biden, you know, Trump gave people money
Trump kind
when
of
Biden
started
hasn't.
that war. Trump really started that war.
All right. I mean, they're both shitty, is the thing, you know. And my mom,
yeah, no, they're totally shitty.
To the
but I
larger
don't
point,
think
Ariel,
that
please let me
Biden's
talk.
going to lose us our democracy.
To the point. As a support, as like a mirror on the other side of the table. It's not that, you know, it's not any better. My mother is just as misinformed in the way she supports Biden. It's not any more meaningful or real than the way your family supports Trump. It's a pro wrestling match. We have people both shouting for their side. The people aren't really fighting, and the stakes aren't what the presented stakes aren't the real stakes. And it's a fucking tragedy. Ariel, I'm done.
Yeah. Same here. And my mom said that like Trump showed courage in the way that he had that speech about the stop the steal stuff, but then when it went to shit, like she was like, oh my god, he did such a horrible thing. And then I'm like, you couldn't see that like before
my family still doesn't think it's wrong. They were apologizing for it and saying that we need to listen to them because they need to be heard. We need to address the things that they brought up that brought them there, and comparing it to Shay's rebellion.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And I remember
that's just terrifying that it was being compared to Shay's rebellion.
There was one kid, and the mom was actually from Massachusetts, who said that her mom was part of the insurrection when they got.
That was here in Worcester.
It was
here in Worcester. She called her mom out on Twitter saying, "You were telling me to not go to BLM stuff because it might get violent."
Right. Yeah. Just hypocrisy. You know. Yeah, it's so thick. That's so
her
funny.
mom literally punched a cop the night before the on the 5th. Like that was the video. Her mother punching a black cop.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's so funny. No, but that's funny. It's like Massachusetts is like, you think they're like liberal, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of like real diehard Trumpers in Massachusetts too.
Yenni.
Western Mass is kind of that middle ground, very rural, open to Trump. We've got a town that's right next door to us, Leicester, that you drive through there and there are still like 4x8 Trump signs and flags flying everywhere and trucks with them hanging out the back. And it's a very rural, right to farming area.
Wow, so it's like Kansas.
It's
we have
weird.
A question from the chat, and you don't have to answer if it's too personal. Someone wants to know if you have kids or plan to have kids, because I guess that they want to context for your positions.
Yeah, so I want kids. We tried since we got married, pretty much. We waited a couple of years before really trying. And it ended up being that my fallopian tubes are blocked. We had a plan to try and have surgery to fix it. And in September 2019, we did a endometriosis removal that went wrong. I almost died on the table, almost bled out from my iliac artery, developing a tear. I had to have an emergency open up, fix, and then that night or the next morning I developed a clot there. They had to go in again. I almost died on the table again. And that pretty much sealed the fate on me being able to have kids.
I'm sorry.
They won't even let me.
Very sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to make you talk about that.
We plan to adopt.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that situation, like people need to talk more about endometriosis. People literally end up passing out from menstrual pain from this. And then doctors go like, oh, everyone has period pain.
Right.
That's what I got for 10 years. And that's what killed my fertility. Like I literally lost my fertility by doctors not understanding the fact that I know my pain.
I'm wondering.
I'm so sorry
was this just a random question that this person asked, or did you talk
about
I
mean, I don't mind.
The YouTube chat's pretty active today, Ariel. Look at it. Yeah, someone
cool.
asked.
No, but I'm just saying you had such a elaborative, interesting answer. So like it's like you never did you ever talk about this before, or it's your
Yeah.
first time
So
now?
that surgery and the me almost dying twice in 2 days really changed my
Wow.
outlook on everything, and it's really what pushed me to running for city council now rather than waiting
I
and
see.
figuring out stuff, because I came out of it with the mentality of if not now, when.
Yeah.
So your
Yeah.
motivation,
Now's the
That's kind of
time.
my impetus
Good.
for running.
right?
Yeah,
So,
good. That no. We
yeah.
need more of this. You know why I'm saying that? Because a lot of politicians, they always answer questions with some sob story about their youth, about like why things sucked. Oh, life sucks when I was young, and like so that's how I'm answering this hard question. But it's like, you know what? Stop doing that. I don't give a rat's ass how hard it was when you were younger. What are you doing to fix the goddamn problem? I don't
Mhm.
want to hear a sob story about like you on the farm or you being a teenager. You can shove it. And I want to hear like, are you fixing the problem? Or if you did go through whatever the hell it was, what is inspiring you to make sure nobody goes through that again? And don't make up a stupid story, saying why everyone should go through shit just because you were through the same shit when you were younger. Fuck that.
That's the whole situation around student loan debt.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's
It
stupid.
you
They
know what I
shouldn't,
said?
because we had to pay it. I'm just like,
You know
okay,
what
so
I
why does that
said?
need to continue?
Right.
Right.
There's
What
no
I said is
progress
that
at all in the
if
entire human
it's like
species if
somebody
we live that
saying
way.
I was abused as a child, so why isn't my neighbor abusing their children? What kind of a stupid argument would that be? And yet, this is our politics. Somebody beat our ass, and we want your ass to be beat too. It's not
What?
getting
Yeah.
us anywhere.
I find that a lot of the other things that I bring up in terms of, like, I am willing and open to talk about the fact that we went through infertility problems majorly, and people actually start getting uncomfortable when I bring it up because it's not a common topic. It's not something that people talk about. People don't talk about the fact that doctors basically poo-poo when you yourself know what's going on with your own body. Like, I have a chiropractor who's absolutely amazing. I love her. I would not be walking or moving without her. And I can literally sit there and I can tell her that the collarbone is slightly out of place, it's set back, and my shoulder is slightly forward and we need to readjust that. And then I can tell her which ribs are displaced slightly. I've got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I've got which is a connective tissue disorder that doesn't hold my bones and joints where they're supposed to. And I can feel it. I know exactly what's wrong. And doctors in the past have been like, are you sure you dislocated or subluxed your shoulder? I'm like, yes. My arm literally was not moving without me moving it manually with another implement. Like, my arm was slack. It could not move and it was in screaming pain and I almost passed out from it. Yes, it was dislocated. But
Wow.
if I have my arm that I can do this and it just popped. Like it just resettled. I didn't even realize it was quite a little bit slightly out of place, and it just rocked back into place there with me moving my arm in that way. So like I just click and creak and like I sometimes when I do this, like all my knuckles just pop. But they don't listen. I've been to doctors for over a decade for migraines, and they're just like, well, let's put you on this med, and that med didn't work. Let's put you on this med. Not
Right. Because
figure out why you're having the migraines.
the incentives are there. Career incentives,
It's a
industry
sick care.
incentives are there
Well,
to put
yeah,
you on
and
medicine, but there's no incentive to listen to you. Why would they? So what, why would you expect them to? There's no what. I mean, we don't even talk in those terms when we talk
And
about
I mean,
policy.
like, I'm privileged because my father was an anesthesiologist and head of the surgical intensive care unit in Manhattan at Columbia University at St. Luke's Roosevelt. And so, like, I got to see all of his friends who would listen to me. But then I moved out here and I moved to college and the doctors up there would not listen to me. I had an ear infection that was so bad and I talked to my doctor about it and like to come in and check it out. And they're like, well, let's wait and see. To the point where when I ended up in the ER about it, they literally thought I had 2 eardrums. That's how infected it was.
Wow.
The perception of it looked like I had 2 eardrums.
Wow.
And it's just like it happens especially to women, especially by male doctors. And then if you're not white, it happens even more.
So if it's a lot of chauvinism in the medical field, I guess. Yeah.
It's also everything. If you hear hoofbeats behind you, you should think it's a horse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually
Right.
like a thing that's said in the Ether community is we're not horses, we're zebras.
Interesting.
We're hoofbeats, but we're zebras because we don't match the pattern.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess that's just the thing of it. It's all these like stereotypes, these destructive stereotypes of people that just people don't listen to each other. People just have these assumptions and stereotypes, and they just go with that kind of litmus test. But it's like, no, if you actually took the time to just sit down and listen and not say anything, then like things would be different. Like me, like if you stereotyped me, you'd say like, oh, like I grew up in this kind of family that likes loud music and being loud and arguing, and I'm just like that. But no, like that, I'm not my family. I'm not even my parents. I'm me. you know Yeah,
I
that's
completely empathize with you on the black sheep side of things.
right. Yeah. It's fascinating, and it's yeah, and that, I think that's just our problem. It's just this kind of like communication where it, especially with the left and right and Trump and Biden and stuff, when it's like, like if we really looked at it, like we don't actually like dislike each other as much as we think we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was same thing with my mental health when I just had this thing of like living up in a in a big house in a suburb, and I just said, well, I'm not happy in this big house. But they're like, it's a big house with a lot of rooms, how can you not be happy? And I'm like, because there's no one to talk to understand me. Like, I don't care like how big this place is, there's
No.
nothing to
I mean,
like
like I would
what
like to ask them, what
yeah.
about the big house is meant to bring me happiness or brings you happiness? Like I'm
Yeah.
like I really just ask in the affirmative sense. Like, don't be on the defensive, but ask them to demonstrate what they mean to you in a positive sense.
Yeah.
Just from a lot. I don't mean like as a moral judgment. Just from a logical perspective, it's an easier way to
Right.
communicate. What is it that I am supposed to be feeling that I am not? Please, let's get to the bottom of it. They
Right.
never have an answer. Like, what am
Yeah.
I missing about the house? I don't know. They're
Right.
like, you're just
Yeah.
weird. Oh, yeah, it's okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so, and it's the easiest thing to do, to just listen to people and acknowledge them and validate them, and yet it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't cost anything to genuinely listen to someone, to be authentic. It doesn't cost you money, but it's the hardest thing for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So weird. It's I can't explain it, but I guess people's brains are just working differently. It's neurology, or
No,
I
they
don't
just
know.
need they just need to be more human. Some people are less human than others. They just
Yeah. So
there's
with
the
some
humanity.
people, you're right, Refluence. It's all about like status and like putting up a front instead of actually like just being true. And I just think that that's so much work, you know, to just do that. And I think that's why like we're in the mess that we're in, because
Mm-hmm.
people don't own up to their personalities, they don't own up to their mistakes. They make layers of like excuses and blame games and manipulations, and then we find our country in the shape that it's in, because I don't know, maybe the US does do it more. We know that that's the kind of president we've had. Yeah.
Yep, it's just is it. That's life, man.
Yeah.
It's got to be that way for a long time until we flip the world upside down or something.
Yeah, let's do
like
it. It's like, yeah, and that's why I love, the Yang Gang, because
Yeah.
the people who all notice this, we've decided to come together. And
Mhm.
you can see, the funny thing is like, we weren't so much attacked, because if you attack us, we're so genuine and authentic that there's really nothing people can do. So instead of head on attacking like our authentic message, it was much easier to bury it in the nonsense. And I think that that's the kind of front that we're fighting. It's not so much about like being able to debate, so much it is just like not letting them bury us, and not letting them turn us into like, oh, they're just over there, they're kind of like a non-factor. We're not a
It's also
non-factor.
something we do to ourselves. I mean,
Right.
last night on Twitter, all of the stuff about the attack on Syria was coming out. And then all of a sudden, somebody posted a clip from some Netflix TV show that mentioned Oppression Olympics. And that's all everyone on Twitter cared about.
It's just
Everyone
phase
talked
man.
about the Oppression Olympics quote and line from that show, when like we just like sent missiles.
I
Yeah.
I don't
mean,
know. I think
it,
it's something that we need to be very careful of how we
It's
talk about things. Like,
yeah,
yes,
it's
the Oppression Olympics thing is ridiculously stupid. That whole little segment is so stupid and horribly written and should never have happened.
right.
But at the same time, like that actor and actress should have said no.
Right. It's I
It's
think
not just the white people writing it, it's the actor and actress who said the lines and let it be recorded.
right. I think that this is the
That's
culture
being complacent.
we got to look at substance and not spectacle. So much of what's happening is just spectacle, and there's zero substance or weight, behind that. And it's like, when we
Where's
really
the
want to
coverage
look
of
at,
the food lines?
yeah, yeah, 100%. And who does this spectacle culture help? The people who already have everything. Because if we really just shut it all down and said, hey, what's really going on here, it would you break the spell that this crap has on our lives, this dog and pony show, the circus that they keep putting on to just distract you from what's really meaningful. Yeah. That. And I think that's what
yeah,
Yang did. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
The whole not
What?
left, not right, forward thing
Yeah.
also really, like, I personally, yes, I'm liberal. Yes, I'm progressive. But there are a lot of things that don't fall into those categories. Most of our lives are not hit by things that are partisan.
Yeah.
Like, which roads get fixed, which sidewalks get installed, which
Your
projects start getting built in a city, which people get into what schools even.
your reproduction problem.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not partisan.
Right. Like, I'm pretty sure Republicans would be more than happy to be pro-life and help you with that. Like yeah, it's just like, what like, a doctor doesn't ask you if you're a Democrat or Republican. They just say,
Mhm.
like, where are you having the pain? Oh, I know why you're having that shoulder pain. It's because you're a Democrat.
Bruh.
At the same time though, mental health therapists, that is a sector that still needs to kind of back out of
Yeah.
that world a little bit, I think. I had to find a new therapist a few years back, and I had two different therapists tell me that the living style I was going through was abusive and they needed to report it.
What?
Like, legit, I got told that by a therapist.
For what?
I'm just like, what?
Hmm.
What?
Interesting.
How? Like, just purely because
What is that supposed to mean?
I'm not
What?
straight. Yes,
Oh,
I am married in a heterosexual relationship, but I'm not straight. And I mentioned that to someone, and they're like, "Well, you're in an abusive situation because your husband and you are living, and you're not living your lifestyle of being not straight." I'm like, being not
ooh.
straight doesn't mean
So
I can't be in a
we're getting
heterosexual
into the
relationship.
old Massachusetts puritanical Salem witch trial stuff. Huh?
This was actually in Vermont, but yeah.
Oh, okay, but same kind of puritanical nonsense. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's interesting. What, were they a boomer?
Yeah.
Go figure. Yeah, it's funny, but it's like if he consents and you consent, okay, like that's the thing. Like the only abuse is when there's no consent. That's
Hmm.
it. And there's consent.
And
Like,
cheating, it depends on what the consent between you and your partner is. Some
right.
people watching porn is cheating. Other people,
Hmm.
I saw this as an example on a Facebook meme earlier, or well, late last night, that said like, and going to a truck stop and having sex with 3 anonymous strangers at the same time might not be considered cheating, depending on the consent basis and the negotiation you've had with your partner. And that communication style needs to be implemented in all relationships.
Right.
I have friends who are poly that still get cheated on. I have one friend who's losing their housing situation because of their partner cheating on them, even though it would have been absolutely fine if the person had communicated with them.
Yeah.
Like
That's
literally, like the person who did the cheating could have talked to my friend, and my friend would have said, "Okay, thank you for letting me know you're going to go do this. Enjoy."
yeah.
That's literally the only thing that needed to happen to make it not cheating. Yet it was cheating
Yeah.
because that didn't happen. So
Right.
there's a lot of consent related things that
Right.
are not talked about.
But if you kind of think about it, and I know this is going to be kind of strange, it's like you don't really owe your parents much because a birth was not a consent. So if anything, like the older generations owe the younger ones because they brought them into a world that they didn't have a say in what the laws were. I don't remember having a say on the laws and the rules and like all of this stuff when I came into this party, or
Mhm.
whatever the hell you want to call it, So I'm so sick and tired of this, the other way around. The older generations owe the younger ones because they're the ones who had the experiences. They're the ones who made the rules. They're the ones who like created it in a way they wanted to create it, and then they're the ones who decided that we should come along for a ride when we never, we had no choice.
One of my favorite quotes from that I was aware of is when I was younger, I would go to the Natural History Museum in Manhattan. I was absolutely obsessed with the Hayden Planetarium. I freaking love that place. I can't wait to like be able to go back there. Anyway, but on the wall in the Natural History Museum, or the Museum of Natural History rather, was a quote that was attributed to Native American because that's really specific. But it's the Earth is not given to us by our parents; it is on loan from our children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
I think that we really need to have more of a sense of that in our culture. I think
Like
that that's
Yeah.
a mentality we need.
like leaving a legacy, something to be proud of, and so it wouldn't be as tougher for the children. You're just trying to make it easier for everybody,
Yeah. Yeah,
especially your
it's
children.
like you don't give birth to a tool or a status symbol. You're giving birth to a human freaking being. It's not a shovel or a pickaxe or a trophy. And when I just read that, like in farming communities, they just have kids, so the kid would work on a farm. It's like, what the hell? Like,
But
so
at
the
the
kid is
same
just
time, it's
like,
also a culture against birth control. It's a culture that
yeah,
believes in having large families just for the sake of having large families. it's a cultural thing, not just a we need them to work. It's also a like you're just expected to have that many kids.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
but it's still.
from Philippines. In Philippines, it's the whole 9 yards about the children kind of deal. Like we immigrate and we find new jobs, and we have like tons of family all over. They're trying to find opportunities, like things like that. It's very uh I don't know what the right word for it, but it's hardworking of the our. I know from my experiences, we like to work harder than we usually would, which is like the challenge for us. We work really hard for our money, even we could do something else and it'd be easier money. But I don't know why the culture is like that, but that's my experiences. You know, it's
Mhm.
harder.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
and and
common with immigrant communities, especially Asian sector.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a shout out to the guy Corridon. We see you on YouTube, and as long as you're still commenting, we
Yeah,
see
so
that.
Corey is my we're figuring out title, but it's somewhere in the like campaign manager, chair, something in that sector role. So Corey is
That's
like
cool.
basically unpaid staff that we're sorting out the title.
Oh, nice. And how does Darla know you, or is that just
I
for?
don't know who Darla is. Che is a very recent volunteer as of on the my interview with
Oh,
Boyce on Trickle Up. They came on board and are on my like very low requirement volunteer team that is social media related. Basically, you're in a Facebook chat or a Twitter chat, and I post things in there when they need to be boosted and go in and like and comment and share.
nice.
Like literally, that's the only ask for that volunteer team.
Oh,
And then I've got volunteer opportunities all the way up the scale if you want to like lead teams and implement big projects on campaigns if you can spend like 5 hours a week. I've got volunteer opportunities running the gamut, and I am happy to find something that fits the skills that you have or want to develop.
that's
Um,
yeah. Especially when you say the skills that you have and want to develop. That should be what our society should be about, not about like forcing kids to memorize and regurgitate BS and stressing them out on an SAT and an ACT and a TIF or what, or some other stupid random bunch of like acronyms for some things.
MCAS.
Yeah, MCAS. It's like, screw that. Teach me a skill, tell me how it's going to make money for me and how it's going to support me in the future, and let's get to it. This memorization and regurgitation bullshit,
Teaching to the
enough.
test needs to go.
Yeah,
It causes a lot of problems when you are in a classroom and you have to hit XYZ and then you don't end up getting to the later stuff. A lot of students these days don't get information on what's happened in the 80s and later. Things end up cutting off around the Cold War in
right.
terms of learning history. And there's so much that has happened in the last 40 years since then. um, that's just not taught. Like people don't know about Desert Storm. People don't know about the just the conflict that has happened in the Middle East since the Cold War. Like the Cold War hasn't ended.
Right. Yeah,
No.
and so funny how people don't even know what a 401k is.
Mm.
It's like they don't know what an ETF or these like things, and I think it's like intentionally kept hidden to us, because it's like a whole world inside of a world that, like, it's just weird.
It's
and
one of
and
those things that schools don't have the ability to really teach right now because of how schools are set up. There's no real space for that education to happen because home ec is gone. Like, we need adulting classes.
That'd be nice. I mean,
Like,
you
how
could,
to keep track of your finances in a way that matters, and being able to figure out a budget and how to plan for retirement, and like,
and
none of that is covered
yeah,
because
and,
we're also not expected to be able to retire.
and the funny
right.
thing, like the party of personal responsibility, like conservative Republicans and stuff like that, they don't even bring this up.
Mhm.
So stupid. Rufflins, you want to say
What was he saying? Oh yeah. Well, you can just look up like for me, I learned a lot of things because of YouTube, and like if the internet wasn't there, it was up to the, like, for example, my mom had to learn it the harder way. She, like I said, she worked like almost 3 jobs supporting her family by herself. That was like that's like triple triple factor, man. That's And my mom, she would have it easier because her mom, my grandma, didn't know any about like 401ks or like banking, budgeting, all that, like you guys mentioned. And because they were recently, I'm a first generation from here, so they started out not knowing anything about the US. So it's like if it would have been a nicer time if the education was there, but now that the internet exists, we have the opportunity to fix the school system to educate on what really matters. So I feel like that's my takeaway from this. Like, if we focus on what's human and what's the triple bottom line and stuff like that, like it'll be really beneficial um to
I mean,
us,
I
to
only
everybody.
just started learning stock and trading stuff from Jacqueline,
Right.
Yeah,
who used to come on here.
right.
Like, she's got a brilliant head around that and is teaching me all of the different terms and what the different things related to that mean. And then I have like family who owns multiple buildings in Manhattan, has a whole bunch of stuff in the stock market, and like, it's just kind of left up to our financial folks in the family,
Mhm.
and our accountant and stuff.
Mhm.
My
That's cool.
one of my uncles works at Fidelity and has some major clients there, but at the same time, it's not talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, when the GameStop thing happened, we actually spoke about it a little bit,
That's
because
cool.
I was just like, "This is crazy. What is going on?" So I was talking to them about it a little bit, with the whole Wall Street Bets stuff, but beyond that, we've never talked about those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like my family owns a whole like import export thing, and the big parties and stuff, they never talk to me about how it works and what happens. Even when I worked there, like in the warehouse and doing some of the things in the office. Yeah, I did that, but I never really knew like what was really happening. It was kind of like, on the edges, and it's amazing how like wealthy families don't talk about to their own families who like kind of like rely on their wealth of like how it all works. It's
Mhm.
always kept under the rug, but it's always like, oh, how was your day today? What happened in school? And like stuff like that. Like that's
It's
always
like
over,
it's
but
like
it's
being
like,
disconnected from the meat industry. It's like you don't know where the meat comes from. You don't know where the money comes from because it comes from an unscrupulous place. So the family doesn't want to talk about it.
mhm,
It's shameful.
So
yeah,
it's a good example. Also, people don't know how cars operate really anymore. I was never
yeah,
taught. I actually put oil in the windshield wiper fluid and windshield wiper fluid in the oil.
Wow.
did
That's how
anything
little I
happen?
knew about cars. Thankfully, someone caught me before I turned the car on. But
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the schools. Like the like even driver's ed's not going to teach you that. It's
Right.
it's like that, and it's amazing how so much of our education is based on theory when so much practicality is just not there. It's like, no, it's like they want you to be infantilized, because who wants an autonomous human being who can rely on themselves? Then they're not dependent on like a job or like something. It's like the more dependent you are, the
I
more
mean,
that these people are going to have power over you,
if
basically.
you look at the history of public schools, they were created because of child labor laws.
Yep.
They were a place for kids to go to get an education of some kind. Meanwhile, people who are wealthy had governesses and homeschool type stuff and elite high schools and schools and colleges that they would pay for to go to. And then public schools were just where you were taught the baseline stuff that you needed to get by, and that was it. Um, Meanwhile, the more wealthy people who are paying for private schools are being taught how to critically think about things and how to change things and make progress so that they can affect change for themselves and for others. Whereas people who are on that lower end of the totem pole with the public schools were just being taught the like bare minimums considered okay to graduate with.
Yeah, but I've even heard like
It's worker bees.
in some public schools, they're just as bad as, and some private schools are just as bad as public schools.
Now they are, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're still like not like my cousins went to a private school, a Jewish one, but still a private school, religious one. But I told them, like, did they teach you about like this practical stuff? And they're like, nope. It's
Mhm.
like, well, maybe they know our parents are rich, so they don't really care if we learn about like money ourselves. Like that's
I mean,
it's
I went to a
ridiculous.
high school that almost lost the public funding because of how much private funding we had from our galas and stuff.
That's funny.
Yes, we had galas.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah,
so like uh, our school got
you
rid
know
of shop class, got rid of home ec
that's
because
disgusting.
why do we need to teach people home ec when they're going to have servants?
Or yeah, exactly. That like I grew up with a maid, and it was like
Grew up with a maid,
yeah, it's
nanny person.
yeah,
Yep.
something like yeah, they only spoke Spanish, but yeah, it was like yeah, it's that.
The two that we had while I was growing up, we had one whose name is Jennifer that I was so young that I couldn't understand somebody having the same name as me, so I just called her Ha Hi. Like, hi, 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 hi.
Yeah,
I was very young, so that name stuck for a while. And then
yeah.
she had her green card and she ended up going to school to be something in the medical world. I don't remember exactly what.
Where was she
And
from?
then we had Anne, who both of them are from Jamaica,
Oh,
and taught me some patois. It was absolutely fun. She was absolutely amazing and unfortunately passed away at the age of 28
mm-hmm,
when I was in high school
mm-hmm.
and college, early college, late high school. I don't remember exactly, but that that hit us hard when she passed. Um, oh no, it was early high school because it was right around the divorce, which happened in freshman year. But like that was actually really awkward because we went to her funeral and it's like all these people in the Bronx that are immigrants and
Oh.
Jamaican and like they're looking at these two young white girls that are like sobbing at the coffin. Like what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
Who are
that's
these
funny.
white folks that are coming in here?
That's funny.
That happens
Yeah.
a lot where I'm from. I'm from Hawaii, so it's a mix. It's a melting pot of like
Yeah.
cultures.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, I see that you gotta go five. I was gonna say that. Yeah. That's the thing that's kind of like messed up, is that our first experience with money, a lot of young people's, is like college debt, and then like when they graduate from college, the same university that they owe the debt to asks for a donation, And it's like, okay, like what the hell is wrong with you over
Month
here?
after graduation, I
This
started
is
getting
so
that mail.
stupid when you don't even have a job and their education hardly helped you get one. It's just, and then they want to charge you for the career service center. It's
Yeah,
our
we don't
system
have a
is up.
charge for the career center. They're really great in there.
Oh,
And our
after you
program,
graduate.
so I have a career focused college that I went to, and we directly interfaced with the video game development world. We had senior projects that we would invite developers to so that they could see us and recruit directly from those presentations and have interviews on campus with those studios. So we had some really good direct
Oh,
job opportunities through our program.
interesting. Yeah. But
But
whether you,
meanwhile,
yeah,
like, we still have like only about 20% of the people I graduated with are still in the game industry.
interesting. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's just
So
it's that horrible and churny of a industry.
yeah,
The
that's
the
yeah.
it's just nightmare. I mean, like, when I was working out in Western Mass, I was on as a contractor illegally. I should have been an employee, but I was labeled as a
Mm,
contractor, even though I had to be there at a certain time, do things in a certain way, work together with the people in a certain way. I had to have deliverables at a certain time. Um, like, I had to meet all of these goals as if I was an employee. I had to follow their rules, follow their training, all of that stuff, which a contractor is not in that category. So I was miscategorized, but I was so terrified of being blackballed from the video game industry that I didn't go after them for it.
wow. Yeah.
And that
The
happened multiple times over the time that I was in the game industry. And I see it still with many friends that are in contract positions with these studios that really shouldn't be contract positions.
wow, that's some
All
shady shit.
purely to avoid having to pay for healthcare and pay for all of those other things and the
Yeah.
taxes related to it. And I had no idea that I needed to withhold my own taxes to pay my taxes at the end of the year because I didn't realize that a contractor didn't have it getting pulled out.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
like my parents, my family had to handle my taxes that year because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I didn't know how to file, nothing.
Yeah. 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 That's the thing. And I hope more Yang Gang people get into positions of power. That's it. We're just gonna talk about this because this is a
I
travesty.
am happy to chat with anybody who wants to run at a municipal level because it is a really great way to get those little incremental changes. And then if we can build up enough people at a municipal level, we can endorse people above and we can
Yeah.
fundraise for people above. We can use our groups and expand and expand and expand and get up there in that way that allows us to, as a community, be those people who are in positions of
And
power.
what you said
I
right there,
personally don't want to go above city level. I could potentially, maybe in a wild future, see myself maybe going to state level. I will never go up to federal.
you know
Um,
what? That what you said is like playing the infinite game. You should
mhm,
see Simon Sinek's idea about the infinite game where like it's about gradual progress over time than
mhm,
just concentrating all of your time and energy just for like one win. And I
mhm.
think that that's the game we're playing because just
We need
these
to
things.
infiltrate the parties too. Like, we need people to run for their Democratic and Republican state and city and town committees, um, to get in there and start influencing the party platform and start being those people that are doing those connections. And it's a lot of behind the scenes work to get people elected when you're running at a slightly higher level. So, like, if I were to run at a state level and I didn't have support of my state party, or at least people who are in my state party, I would have a far more difficult time getting the media coverage, getting to talk to people who matter, who are big donors, who are all of that stuff without the support of the party. Um, and one of the things that the Bernie crowd did after the 2016 election, our revolution was starting to push people to go into their Democratic town committees, which didn't end up going all that far. But I think that it's something that we really need to focus on. And it's not as big of a requirement as running for office. You don't have to fundraise for it. You literally, like, some areas it's not even contested. In Massachusetts, we've got 351 townships and town and city committees, but only like half of them actually exist, and only half of those are active in any way. The Worcester City Committee and ward committees they exist in name. We have chairs, but I've never seen them host anything resembling an event.
That's rough.
But it's a, like, we need to I guess infiltrate is the best word for it, and we need to not just do it on the Democrat side. We have the benefit of being the Yang Gang. Not left, not right, forward means we need to also get people who are on the Republican side to bring reality.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we're living in a mixed reality of like who's better than who.
I really never thought that I would live in a world where I could understand and see how Hitler came to power.
Right.
Mm.
It's pretty sad. It's just that,
Because I mean, Trump is literally following Hitler's path.
Yeah.
I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger compared the Sixth to Kristallnacht.
Yeah.
Right.
And it kind of, in a way, it was our Kristallnacht. And now he's out of power, but we didn't impeach him, so he can run again, which is what Hitler did.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, if he gets into power again, things are going to be a problem.
Okay, I'm imagining it now.
I don't necessarily think that we're going to end up with Holocaust, but it's definitely the path he's taking for that to destroy democracy with this is problematic.
Well, I mean, if the judgment of whether it's going to happen or not is the performance of the current administration, it's a foregone conclusion that it will happen. So we should probably be planning for that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to do what we can to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we got the brains over here. All they have on the other sides is just like they're yelling and shouting in their spectacle. So we can strategize,
His to come to an empty room.
Yeah, the worst is more like
that was just horrible.
Yeah, it's carnival barking. Step right up, get your tickets to the end of the world.
There's also this whole sense of like, well, if I get rich.
Right.
Yeah.
They people who are on the poorer end of things that are Republican have a tendency, obviously I'm not generalizing to a super extent here, but the culture there, mentality-wise, is I'm temporarily poor. I'm just not rich yet.
Temporarily embarrassed millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah, it's just the propaganda and the brainwashing, they've perfected it into an art form. Mm-hmm. They've just like, it's just being fed to them through these channels of just really, really charismatic people. But here's what we need to do. We need to tie in the reason with the charisma. We need someone who has charisma, but who wields the power of reason. And that's going to be great.
And I don't know if that's Yang or not.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Know.
If you can be as charismatic as Trump, but not be as stupid as Trump. But yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like our movement needs to move beyond Yang.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And I think
that's why I was so behind Humanity First movement, because like we're an organization that's that's basically pushing that Yang Gang values, the policies that he pushed for, but we're a movement. We are working together to fix the problems. And we've got state chapters starting up in all sorts of different states, hfmovement.org if you want to check us out. Little plug. We've got board elections happening this weekend for our next board. We're in the process of legally becoming an entity because HF has finally stopped with the back and forthy stringing us along situation that was happening last year. So we're now we're certain of what the division is between us and HF. So we're finally forming that legal entity, going to be building out our systems even more so. And we could really, really use volunteers and people to operate at a state level for volunteering. So that a lot of our states have monthly, weekly meetings. Massachusetts has weekly meetings and a monthly all-state call. A lot of states have that structure right now, and if you're in a state that doesn't have one, we've got a Kickstart program that can get folks in your area together to start one. But in terms of, before I head off, campaign-wise, I am currently in the process of fundraising for my first mailer. It is going to go out to voters in district. It's going to cost around $5,542, which is my fundraising goal. And that will help me invite people to those listening tour sessions. We're selecting a name tonight, but the goal of that is so that I can hear from people what matters to them and introduce myself to them, and then to get them to sign my nomination forms. I need 100 signatures by the end of May. I'm not super concerned, but I got to be proactive about it. We're not doing really on the ground things. So if you want to be on the team where you'll like and retweet and share my stuff, just message me on Facebook or Twitter and I'll add you to those groups. If you want to do volunteering in a more extensive way, even if it's 15 minutes a week, I've got things like data entry, taking my business cards and converting the information onto a spreadsheet from all the business cards I've collected over the years. There's other things that are like an hour or two a week. There's things that are 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Some team leads might end up putting things like 8 to 10 hours, but it's a great space to get experience, to see if working on campaigns is the space for you. If you've got an idea that you want to try out, I am all about empowering volunteers to try things out, as long as they don't necessarily cost a whole crap ton of money, because I don't have money. Need fundraising, please donate. I put the link in the chat earlier. And as soon as I can, I'm going to be getting those mailers out to start inviting people to those sessions. So, and to kind of push off of those mailers, we're going to be doing phone banking starting probably on the 8th. So we'll have some phone banking opportunities for folks that want to get involved with that as well. So on my website, there's a spot to fill out and say that you want to volunteer and what your skills are and what you're interested in. There's a spot on there to donate as well to that $5,542 goal.
Nice.
It's on
Yenni,
Twitter.
thank
It's on Facebook.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Page is facebook.com/vote Yenni, and I'm Yenni Desroches on Twitter.
Yep.
Yenni Desroches, can you spell it again? Because some people just hear.
It's DES as in Sam, ROCHES as in Sam.
Cool. Yeah, we got an audio only version, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yenni,
no
it was
problem.
really good to
and
catch up with
Yenni
you.
is YENNI. It's a nickname for Jennifer.
Oh, okay. Cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let 'em know.
Please come back anytime. You're welcome. I post the schedule every Thursday. If you see someone coming on you'd like to talk to, or if you see an open discussion you'd like to, bring something to talk about, please do. You can come and lurk or come and dominate the conversation as much as you feel fit to. We're very open and informal. And I really like what you bring to the table. You have a unique perspective. Everyone does, but like you said,
we had a great time last year when I was on for HFM too.
Yeah.
That was really fun. sitting outside of my father's 60th birthday party that I didn't expect 40 people to be at.
Oh man.
I was sitting in the car. I don't know if you guys remember, but I was sitting in the car.
Yeah.
Like they kept coming over to the car, like, come on. It was catered. There were caterers there doing past apps
Oh man.
with like food on a buffet table. No one was wearing masks. We had a singer, a bartender. There was a food truck.
That's like a carnival.
Like,
a little street fair happened.
I mean, that's my family. We can't do anything by
Right.
apps.
No, that's the
but like
money
40
people.
plus people at an event in June.
Mm-hmm.
Well, July 20th is my father's
Yeah.
birthday. It was just very strange to be around that many people
Man.
after like months of seeing no one. I thought it was just going to be a close family thing where it was just me, my sister, my husband, her boyfriend, my father.
That's how they
Like I
get
thought it was
you.
just going to be a small little thing. My father's a doctor. Like,
Oh, he's
I didn't expect it to be a big thing.
That's ironic. He was a doctor doing it in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, it was a surprise party.
Right. Oh, okay.
Stephanie,
Yeah,
his new wife. Well, not as new. It's been a while, but
yeah.
but she's the one who threw it and
My-
planned it. And like there were people from work, people from the neighborhood, people from like family that were all invited. It was weird.
It's the same thing. It's like, oh, it's not going to be much people, or like, come, it's going to be fun, and I'm like, who are all of these guys? Like 30 more than what's supposed to be there, and they all say they know you and remember you, but you kind of like don't. They're like, what? Who?
Right.
Yeah. People at my wedding that I didn't know.
That's high society.
Yeah.
That is Mediterranean culture.
Mm-hmm.
That too.
Because you have huge families that all stay in touch. Like I knew my great grandmother, and the descendants from that level down all still interact with each other. Like we have a huge Italian family that extends very far. I mean, like I've got family that I know of and have had brief conversations with in Italy even. I met my great aunt when we went over there.
Same thing with me and
saw
Israel.
my grandfather's old farm.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, but
that must be fun.
Yeah, big families are interesting.
Yeah.
I'll yeah. But
big trees.
But and I don't think I listed my website. What my website is yenniforcouncil.com, YENNIFOR council. So please check that out. And I also want that site to be as accessible as possible. So if you find any issues on the website with any formatting issues, or something's not showing up on your device properly, or if you use a screen reader and you're having problems having things get read or navigated on there, please let me know. I want to make sure that I fix those.
Yeah, the website looks clean. It's clean.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Aria is doing an amazing job. I freaking love the Yang Gang. Like, Aria's in San Francisco and is knocking my website out of the park, and I'm really looking forward to what he does with the political website side of his business, because I think it's going to be great. He's fantastic.
Aria, I think that's they could be Persian too.
I
could
think
be.
So.
Could be.
I am not sure. I know he's in that like sector of looks, but I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna stop the stream here and kick Craig out. It's been over 3 hours.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking it out if you watched
just stick around for 1 second. Yeah, thanks. Stick around for 1 second, Yenni, so I can just say goodbye after we get off the stream. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 with Tom from Nerds for Yang, and then Sunday at 2 with a sort of open anniversary party, or 1 year anniversary. So 2 o'clock for the next 2 days. Thanks again. We'll see you then. Goodbye. All right, the YouTube stream.